Chapter 9:30. 3 days later, Chu Luiyue selected her entourage and set off from Pingliang Square. There were a total of 10 people going with her this time. 5 of them were young talents from various families: Jian Fengqi, Yuan Jinghong, Mu Hongyu, Chang Wanzhou, and Wu Ming from Tianji residence. The other 5 were the most powerful people in Xiling: Chun Ku and Su Jin, the 2 elders from the royal family. Elder Xiaoyi. Elder Xiao ran from Shengyan Palace, and Qin. Of course, Qin, he had already returned to his original name, Cini. General Meng, after I leave, I'll leave Xiling to you, Chu Luiyue said to Meng Jingji solemnly. Meng Jingji cupped his fists. Don't worry, Your Majesty. He swore loyalty to the Tianling dynasty, so he would naturally do his best to keep this place safe. Chu Luiyue nodded and felt a little more at ease. She trusted Meng Jingji's character. Ever since the last big reshuffle, many positions in Xiling City had become vacant. For example, the Black Cavalry had lost their deputy general, Mu Qinghe, and they were like dragons without a leader. As for many other aspects, they were more or less lacking. This time, she had brought Elder Chun Ku and the others with her to the Dark North Dynasty. This would undoubtedly lower the defense of the Western Hill. At this time, Meng Jingji was the best candidate to stabilize the situation. He had been able to suppress Shi Jiang for many years, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to deal with this. The most important thing was that he was indeed loyal to the Tianling dynasty. Don't worry. I'll definitely help you guard this place well, Shang Wenyu said firmly. Chu Luiyue nodded. Although father is now the retired emperor, he's been on the throne for many years and is better at controlling these things than I am. She really had nothing to worry about. Please take care, father. We'll leave now. After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she nodded at the person beside her. The transportation array started to spin slowly. Shang Wenyu stepped forward. Be careful. I'll wait for your safe return. Chu Luiyue nodded vigorously at Shang Wenyu. A strong light flashed. Everyone's figures instantly disappeared from the spot. Shang Wenyu looked at the empty square with a solemn expression. I hope that everything will go smoothly this time. After entering the teleportation array, the surroundings were pitch black. Elder Chun Ku took out a water pearl and lit up the space they were in. I wonder how long this trip will take us, Mu Hongyu muttered curiously. It'll take about 5 days. We'll pass through 4 transportation array formations. Isn't that further than the Great Desolate Swamp? She was Yaiyu's. The Tianling dynasty is very far from there, and the Baiming dynasty is about twice the size of the Tianling dynasty. Even if we reach their border, it'll take a lot of time to get to Lin province. I see. So this Baiming dynasty seems to be very powerful? Mu Hongyu wasn't from the Tianling dynasty, so she didn't know much about the Tianling dynasty, let alone the Baiming dynasty. She only learned a little about it after knowing that she was going with them. Before Chu Luiyue could say anything, Jian Fengqi chuckled and said lazily, There's a divine god in the Tianling dynasty. There's a great ancestor who's ascended to the god realm, so of course they think highly of themselves. Chu Luiyue touched his eyebrows and smiled. This is a fact. Among the surrounding empires, there aren't many who have stepped into the godly realm. The Dark North Empire is considered one of the best. It's a powerful empire with countless experts. No one can deny that. Who knows how many people will want to join in the fun when the ancient Phoenix Mountain opens. It was a surprise that the Tianling dynasty was invited. Not to mention Dark North Empire. Even the other 3 empires that were invited were not weak either. If it were in the past, they might have been able to compete. However, the Tianling dynasty had just gone through a shocking change. Countless people were implicated and punished. It could be said that the Tianling dynasty's vitality was greatly damaged. Therefore, among the 5 dynasties, the Tianling dynasty was expected to be at the bottom. However, Chu Luiyue didn't care much about that. She had come here mainly to rescue Chuning, and, at the same time, to see what Jun Jiuqing was up to. Your Majesty is right. The ancient Phoenix Mountain is the place where the Taizu of the Baiming dynasty successfully broke through to level 9. It's now regarded as a sacred mountain because there are many rare treasures buried there, and there's a lot of origin power stored there. It's very beneficial to one's cultivation if you can go in and explore. This is a rare opportunity. You must seize it, Elder Chun Ku said earnestly to Jian Fengshi and the others. Although he didn't know why the Biming dynasty suddenly invited them, it was still a rare opportunity. Chu Liwa nodded and teased with a smile. I've been a princess for 20 years, but I've never encountered such an opportunity. Mu Hongyu asked curiously. Lu, your majesty, will you be coming with us this time? Chu Liwa knocked on her head. Just call me by my previous name. It's awkward to hear your majesty all the time. Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. In fact, it took her a lot of effort to accept Chu Liuyue's true identity. Previously, she thought that they couldn't be like before because of their different identities. She was upset about it for a few days. Now that she heard her words, she was delighted. Then I'll call you that in private from now on, okay? Lu Yu said that he didn't mind, but she had to think about Lu Yu. After all, he was the emperor of the Tianling dynasty. He couldn't be the same as before. Chu Liwen nodded with a smile. Okay. As for whether I'll come with you this time, it's not too late to decide when we get there. After passing through 3 transportation formations, they finally arrived at the border of the Biming dynasty. A huge transparent curtain fell from the sky. Why do they have a heaven's canopy here? Mu Hongyu murmured. That's not a heaven's canopy. It's a barrier built by a Xian formation, Elder Chun Ku said in a deep voice. Mu Hongyu widened her almond-shaped eyes in shock. She had never seen a barrier of such a scale before. This is the pressure of a level 9 Xian formation, and there's definitely more than one. It's clearly formed by several connected formations. Elder Su Jin was the only female among the royal elders. She looked to be in her 30s. She was graceful and charming, but her personality was a little cold. But now, she couldn't help but be amazed. The Biming dynasty really lives up to its name. She wasn't interested in other things, but she was obsessed with Xian formations. For a high-level Xian formation, she often studied it obsessively and didn't rest for dozens of days. Now that she suddenly saw such a formation, she naturally couldn't hide her excitement. She quickly patted Chu Liuyue's arm. It's rare to see a level 9 Xian formation. You have to take a look at it this time. Later, I'll rely on you to draw it from master to study. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 9:31. Chu Liue coughed. Master Su Jin, please restrain yourself. Elder Su Jin used to be one of her masters as a mystic cultivator. Back then, she was extremely obsessed with these things, but she didn't expect it to be even more so now. Hey, don't you always have a photographic memory of mystic formations? Just take it as master begging you, okay? Elder Su Jin put her palms together and gave Chu Liuyue a fawning smile, without any trace of her previous cold aura. This, Su Jin, if you really want to see it, I can also help you. How about we each memorize a portion? Xiao Ran, who had been very silent, couldn't help but speak up. His eyes were filled with eagerness as he looked at Elder Su Jin with an exceptionally gentle gaze. Elder Su Jin waved her hand and refused without even turning her head. No way, no way. How can you and I remember it as clearly as you're? Disappointment flashed across Xiao Ran's eyes, but it disappeared in an instant. In the end, she still looked at the barrier and memorized it diligently. Even if it was just a little help, it would be good. Chu Liuyue snickered inwardly. Xiao Ran was the #1 elder of Holy Flame Palace, and also the strongest person in their sect. His status and prestige were even higher than the palace master of Holy Flame Palace. He had pursued Elder Su Jin for 20 years, but had never succeeded. She didn't expect that he still hadn't given up until now. Don't worry, Master Su Jin, I'll remember it. However, if I want to study it thoroughly, I might have to ask Elder Xiao Ran for help occasionally. Xiao Ran glanced at Chu Liuyue gratefully. How could Elder Su Jin not know Chu Liuyue's thoughts? She tapped her nose. Sly, you were a level 8 mystic cultivator back then. What do you mean you don't understand? Chu Liuyue shrugged. Unfortunately, I'm not one now. Jian Fengshi finally couldn't help but glance at her. You have nothing to do with the word modest. Please wake up. Although she no longer had the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, this wouldn't affect her talent as a mystic cultivator. After so many years, the most talented mystic cultivator he had seen was Chu Luiwei. Otherwise, Elder Su Jin wouldn't have asked her for help. Chu Luiwei had a rare moment of embarrassment and surrendered with both hands. Okay. Give me 15 minutes. After she finished speaking, she raised her head and looked at the intersecting profound formations in front of her. The people around her also quieted down immediately. They followed her and watched while waiting for her to speak. TSK. A disdainful sneer came from behind them. These days, there are really all kinds of arrogant people. This barrier was jointly created by several level 9 mystic cultivators of the Baiming dynasty over a year. Ordinary people would feel dizzy just by looking at it a few more times. Yet, he actually wanted to memorize it completely. Haha, what a joke. Elder Su Jin and the others turned their heads to look and saw that there was a group of people arriving right after them. The other party also had 11 people. The one who spoke was a young woman who looked to be in her 20s. She had a delicate appearance and was dressed in luxurious clothes. However, there was a hint of arrogance between her eyebrows. Elder Chun Ku glanced at her before his gaze landed on the middle-aged man standing at the front. He had an ordinary face with a full beard and looked rather dignified. There were dragon patterns on his sleeves and the corners of his clothes, making his identity clear. Raoli, don't be rude. The middle-aged man seemed to be reprimanding her, but his tone was still very gentle. It was obvious that he doted on this woman. The woman snorted. I'm just speaking the truth. I just can't stand some people putting on an act. Could it be that there really is someone in this world who can memorize a level 9 mystic formation with just one look? The middle-aged man didn't reprimand her again. It was obvious that he had the same thoughts as her. He shook his head with a helpless smile. When can you change your straightforward personality? Your Majesty, the eldest princess, is right. We've just arrived at the border of the Baiming dynasty, and she's already like this. Who knows how much worse it will be when we reach Lin province. A purple-robed young man helped to speak up. The middle-aged man shook his head. Be that as it may, the Baiming dynasty is someone else's territory after all. You should all restrain yourselves. No matter what, the other party was invited here, just like us. Why make things awkward? With that, he looked at Chu Luiwei and the others again. Elder Chun Ku stepped forward. Chen Ku of the Tianling dynasty greets Emperor Huairan of the Taiyu dynasty. Tan Taichun looked at him in surprise, then smiled politely. So, it's Elder Chen Ku of the Tianling dynasty. You know me? Elder Chun Ku's expression was calm. You came to Tianling 43 years ago. At that time, this old man had the chance to meet you. Tan Taichun's expression froze. He went to the Tianling dynasty that time for a marriage alliance. At that time, the Taiyu dynasty was slightly weaker than the Tianling dynasty. That was why he wanted to marry them. Unfortunately, he was rejected in the end. Since then, he felt humiliated and never went to Tianling again. Over the past few decades, the Taiyu dynasty's overall strength had surpassed Tianling. In addition to the things that happened in Tianling some time ago, they were naturally no match for them. I see. I don't remember these things clearly. He didn't pay attention to Elder Chen Ku at that time. After so many years, he naturally didn't remember him. However, I didn't know that the Tianling dynasty would come for the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain this time. Tan Taichun smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. I thought that you would be busy recently. There was a hint of mockery in his words. Elder Chun Ku's brows furrowed slightly. Soon after, he began to laugh. You're right. We've been busy recently, but since the Baiming dynasty sent an invitation, we naturally have to show some respect. There's no reason for us not to come. In other words, they were invited by the Baiming dynasty, just like the Taiyu dynasty. Since they were all the same, there was no need to differentiate between them. Tan Taichun choked. His face was a little gloomy. He really didn't know that the Tianling dynasty would be invited. Logically speaking, the current Tianling dynasty didn't seem to have a right to be invited. However, only the people of the Baiming dynasty knew the answer to that. The Tianling dynasty? Is it the heavenly fate princess that's been making a lot of noise recently? Tantai Ruoli asked. She deliberately emphasized the words, heavenly fate princess. Back then, the news that the Tianling dynasty had a Tianjing Yuan meridian spread like wildfire. It was as if it was something amazing to have such a genius. Later, they also heard a lot about the heavenly fate princess. Most people talked about how outstanding she was. Who knew that in the end, she would be framed by her own fiancé and sister? How could she still be called the heavenly fate princess? It was just a joke. Elder Chun Ku heard her sarcasm and mockery. His expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to retort, Chu Luiwe had already retracted her gaze. She turned to look at them and smiled. Thank you for your concern. However, I'm no longer the heavenly fate princess. I'm the Tianling Emperor, Yuan Shi. Eldest Princess Tantai, please call me Emperor Yuan Shi. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 932. Although there was a smile on her lips, her black, jade-like eyes were clear and cold. It was enough to send chills down one's spine. Tantai Ruoli and Chu Luiwe looked at each other and felt a chill run down their spines. In that instant, it was as if they had been completely seen through. The faint, majestic aura emanating from the other party actually caused her to feel fear. This was the true aura of an emperor. Although the Tianling dynasty was no match for Taiyu, Chu Luiwe was the emperor and Tantai Ruoli was the princess. There was a clear difference in status between the two of them. According to the rules, I am on the same level as Emperor Huiran. You should pay your respects to me when you see me. However, seeing that Tianling and Taiyu have dealings with each other, and both of you are here in the Beiming dynasty, I'll let you off the hook. Chu Luiwe spoke casually. However, every word of his was using his status to suppress Tantai Ruoli. However, when you enter the Beiming dynasty and meet other people, I hope that eldest Princess Tantai will remember your status clearly. Otherwise, if you make a fool of yourself again, it might bring you a lot of trouble. Tantai Ruoli opened her mouth and wanted to retort, but her throat was so tight that she couldn't spit out a single word. Her chest felt unbearably tight. Her status was indeed a level lower than the other parties. Father, she stomped her feet and looked at Tan Taichin for help. Tan Taichin frowned and looked at her. That's enough, Ruoli. It didn't matter how willful she was usually, but now that they were in someone else's territory, she couldn't be so impudent. Although Chu Luiwe's words were unpleasant, they weren't without reason. Seeing that her father, who had always doted on her, wasn't speaking up for her, Tantai Ruoli could only obediently keep her mouth shut. However, she resented Chu Luiwe even more in her heart. Was he the emperor of Tianling? What was there to be proud of? How could the current Tianling compare to them? I'll teach her a lesson when we get to Linzhou. Chu Luiwe looked at the people around him. Let's go. Elder Su Jin's eyes lit up. Since she said so, it proved that she had already finished looking through all the Xian formations. Although he had changed his body, his talent did not decrease at all. Instead, it seemed to have become even stronger. Good. Let's go. Don't delay it because of some irrelevant people and things. The expressions of Tantai Chun and the others changed slightly. It didn't look good. These words were obviously referring to them. However, Chu Luiwe and the others clearly didn't care about their reactions. They didn't even spare them a glance. They walked forward. The soldier guarding the Xian formation said in a deep voice, "Please show me your invitation." Chu Luiwe took out the invitation card. With a slight movement of his finger, the invitation card flew out and landed on the barrier formed by the profound formation. Wong. A ripple spread out in all directions with the invitation card as the center. In the next moment, the barrier opened from the middle. One of the teleportation arrays inside was already starting to rotate slowly. Let's go, Chu Luiwe shouted, and the few of them disappeared in an instant. That Shang Wanyu is so arrogant. Seeing that they had left, Tantai Ruoli couldn't help but laugh coldly. The rumors about her in the past were all very mysterious. If she was really that powerful, why would she be harmed in the past? I don't know how she came back and ascended to the throne, but she's so arrogant. Does she really think that she's invincible? That's right. She even said that she would memorize the level 9 Xian formation on the barrier in 15 minutes. What a joke. Even if she has a photographic memory, this profound formations level is extremely high, and it's extremely complicated. How could she remember it all? The young man beside him quickly agreed. Ruoli, it's not worth getting angry over this kind of person. When we get to Linzhou, we'll expose her in front of everyone. Let's see how arrogant she can be. Tantai Ruoli rolled his eyes and smiled. That's a good idea. Those who came to Linzhou this time are the most powerful people in each dynasty. When the time comes, she'll definitely be humiliated. Tan Taichin didn't comment on that. In fact, he didn't like that Shangguan Yu's words and actions. In addition, he had some grudges against the Tianling dynasty. Naturally, he didn't want to be on good terms with them now. He turned around, glanced at them, and said faintly, "Don't worry. These are all small matters. You just have to be careful. Don't forget that the most important thing this time is to wait for the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain. Ruoli, especially you, you're only one step away from becoming a level 8 warrior. You don't have to take this opportunity to break through. If you can get a great opportunity and go up a few levels, then your future will be limitless." Tantai Ruoli patted her chest confidently. "Father, don't worry. This time, I'll make you proud. I'll let them know who the top genius is." Tan Taichin nodded in satisfaction. "Let's go." They entered from the boundary at the border. This was the last teleportation array. From here, they could reach Linzhou directly. After waiting for a while, a light spot finally appeared in the darkness ahead. Elder Chun Ku said in a deep voice, "We're almost there." As soon as he said that, the atmosphere suddenly changed subtly. Some were nervous, and some were looking forward to it. After all, none of them had been to the Beiming dynasty before, let alone Linzhou. When they thought about the competition with the people from the other dynasties, they couldn't help but feel excited. The light in front of them became brighter and brighter until a strong pressure came from all directions. A group of people rushed out of the teleportation array one after another. The light flashed in front of them, and they finally felt that they were stepping on solid ground. Chu Luiwei stood still and looked ahead. A majestic city stood in front of them. Behind it, there was an endless mountain range like a giant beast lying on the ground. Its aura was astonishing. Even though he was standing so far away, he could still clearly feel that terrifying pressure. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath. That's the ancient Phoenix Mountain. At the same time, in the Beiming Palace, in the blue lake, a small boat floated gently. On top of it, a person was reclining, looking carefree and unfettered. A gentle breeze blew. He chuckled, seeming to be a little drunk. His voice was hoarse and decadent, like a hook that tickled people's hearts. "It's finally here. Digression. Continue at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network." Chapter 9:33. As his voice fell, he pushed the boat with one hand, and his figure floated up like a swan. The indigo brocade robe drew an arc in the air. From afar, it looked like an elegant ink painting, reflecting the sky and the water. However, the trace of red at the end of his hair was a strong and bright stroke, as if it wanted to break free from this tranquil and peaceful painting. Cuckoo! A strange bird's cry was heard. In the sky, there was a white bird that was flying over at high speed. The bird was not big, and its body was snow white. Only its claws and head were ink black. It should have looked soft and cute, but it had a sharp red beak and sharp and cold eyes, which added a bit of fierceness to it. It flapped its wings and landed directly on Jun Jiuqing's right arm. "You're too late. I already know." He laughed in a low voice. He naturally knew that she was coming the fastest. From the moment she walked out of the teleportation array and arrived at Lin City, he already knew. These words seemed to make the bird a little disappointed, and the fierceness in its eyes became stronger. "All right, I's in a good mood today. I will give you the reward you deserve." Hearing his words, the bird became excited again. It flapped its wings anxiously, as if it could not wait. Jun Jiuqing tilted his head slightly and said lazily, Go and bring a beginner of the 7th rank for it. Soon, a guard appeared by the lake and respectfully knelt on one knee. Yes. By the way, throw away the previous ones. Kill a fresh one for it today. The guard was a little surprised, but it seemed that this was not the first time he had experienced such a thing. He immediately reacted. This subordinate obeys. Cuckoo. Only then did the bird call eagerly and fawningly. With a shake of Jun Jiuqing's arm, it flew into the air. Soon, the figure of the guard and the bird disappeared without a trace. Jun Jiuqing stood quietly on the boat with one hand behind his back for a moment. Men! 2 guards ran out together. Your Highness, what orders do you have? How are the preparations for the things I asked you to do? Don't worry, Your Highness. This subordinate has prepared everything. That's fine. A distinguished guest had arrived, so naturally, they had to receive him well. As Jun Jiuqing spoke, he raised his head slightly and looked in a certain direction. You really made I wait for too long. After Chu Luiyue came out, the others also came out one after another. Looking around, there was a group of armored soldiers guarding the area around the teleportation array plaza. 2 men stood in front of the teleportation array. One was tall and muscular, while the other was slightly skinny. The 2 of them stood side by side, but one of them was stronger than the other. They were clearly wearing the same official robes, but the thinner man was clearly shorter than the burly man next to him. It looked like they were waiting for someone. After Chu Luiyue and the others came out, the 2 of them looked over. Shock flashed across the duo's eyes when they saw Chu Luiyue, who was standing right in front of the group. Even the soldiers guarding the teleportation array could not help but take a few more glances at her. There were countless beautiful women in the world. However, there were very few who were as beautiful and noble as this woman. Needless to say, her facial features were perfect, but the most moving thing was the aura between her eyebrows. She was cold and bright, with an unattainable noble aura. At first glance, she was as bright as the sun in the clouds, but at second glance, she was as beautiful as the cold moon. She was truly a beauty that could topple cities. After a moment, the burly man reacted first, and an eager smile appeared on his face. However, before the smile could fully spread, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something, and his expression froze. His expression changed very quickly, but Chu Luiyue still saw it clearly. She narrowed her eyes slightly. The man spoke hesitantly. I am Yin Hao, and I have been ordered to wait here. May I ask if you are all from the Tianling dynasty? Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. I am from the Tianling Shangwanyu. A look of I knew it flashed across the man's eyes. Then, the smile on his face reappeared, but it was much more polite and distant, and the smile did not reach the corners of his eyes. Honorable guests, you have come from afar, and I apologize for not welcoming you. Wen Fan, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and invite our honorable guests into the city. The thin man next to him glanced at him, as if he wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words in the end. Then, he took a few steps forward and bowed respectfully to Chu Luiyue and the others. I am Wen Fan, and I will be in charge of all your matters in Lin City this time. If you have any questions, please let me know. So, he was in charge of receiving the guests. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. The person who was sent to do this must have a high status in the Baiming dynasty. However, judging from the situation just now, Yin Hao seemed to be much more powerful than Wen Fan. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. All right, then, I will have to trouble Lord One for a period of time. Wen Fan did not expect Chu Luiyue to be so polite. He was flattered and quickly waved his hand. You are too kind. This is what I should do. His Highness the Crown Prince has already made arrangements for your accommodations. Please follow me into the city gates. Chu Luiyue looked calm and nodded slightly. The other party had come for her from the beginning, so it was not surprising that they had prepared these accommodations in advance. She did not say much, but called out to Elder Chun Ku and the others. The group then followed Wen Fan to the city gate. However, as soon as they stepped out of the teleportation formation, there was another fluctuation behind them. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. As expected, Tan Taichun and the others had arrived. Yin Hao saw them and immediately went to greet them happily. Emperor Huairan, You are finally here. I have been waiting for you for a long time. Tan Taichin looked at him. You are? Yin Hao bowed respectfully, his face full of eagerness. My name is Yin Hao. I'm here to take care of all your affairs in Linzhou City. His Majesty said that you will not be here for a long time, and he misses you very much. He even wants to play a game of chess with you. Tan Taichin finally understood and laughed. Me too. Since I am here this time, I will have a good time. Yin Hao raised his arm. This way, please. After that, he bowed and led the way in front. I thought that he was a powerful person just now, but it turns out that he is just a servant who is used to judging others. Mu Hongyu said with disdain. Yin Hao saw them just now, and he was very cold and noble. It was difficult for him to even smile. Now that he saw Tan Taichin and the others, he was completely different. Aren't you afraid that your mouth will crack from smiling? Chu Luiwei smiled carelessly. There is nothing strange about that. Our Tianling is indeed a little inferior to the current Taiyu. If we can get on their good side, we will naturally benefit a lot. She turned her gaze and looked at Wen Fan. This person seemed to be used to being bullied. Digression, I am a little stuck, and I will take my time to grind it out. Later on, it will be slower. Everyone, please show your impatience. Chapter 9:34. Don't worry about them. Let's go first. Chu Luiwei retracted his gaze and walked forward. When Wen Fan heard this, he hurriedly reacted and led the way in front. This way, please. Below the square, there were 2 teams on each side of the square. They seemed to be here to pick people up. There were several carriages in each team. The one in front was the most luxurious. The ones behind it were slightly less luxurious, but they were still very luxurious compared to ordinary carriages. There was a totem engraved on each of the carriages. They were obviously prepared by the Beiming royal family. There were 2 top-notch carriages at the very front, both of which were pulled by 8 blue-scaled horses. The blue-scaled horses were 7th-grade magical beasts. They were considered to be of high quality, so they were very valuable. The fact that the Beiming dynasty could send so many of them to pull the carriages showed how powerful their country was. What was slightly different was that among the 8 blue-scale horses on the left, one of them had an extremely pure color. Under the sunlight, it actually shone like an azure sea. It was obviously about to break through. Of course, it was more valuable than the others. Wen Fan was about to walk to the team on the left when Yin Hao's voice came from behind him. Wen Fan, are you going to sit in the team on the right? Although it was a question, his tone was clearly in order. Wen Fan frowned. He turned around to look at him and said, according to the numbers, the team on the left is number 4, and the one on the right is number 5. We should be sitting in number 4. Yin Hao, however, laughed out loud. Isn't it just a number? The first 3 teams have already left. There are only 2 teams left. What's there to split? We'll take the one on the left. Wen Fan was a little angry. He had tolerated him before, but now he wanted to snatch the carriages. He didn't care if he was bullied, but if he backed down now, wouldn't he drag the people of the Tianling dynasty down with him? His voice became colder. Yin Hao, we all know the principle of first come, first served. Moreover, the people of the Tianling dynasty came first. Naturally, you should sit in number 4. Yin Hao was refuted in front of everyone. He felt that he had lost face, and his face turned ugly. Didn't you hear what I said just now? His Majesty is waiting to play chess and catch up with Emperor Huairan. If it's delayed, can you bear the responsibility? Wen Fan sneered in his heart. Their mission today was to pick up the people here and settle them down. If he wanted to see His Majesty, he had to wait until tomorrow. Using this as an excuse, he was clearly trying to snatch the item. No, it's just a group of carriages. What's there to fight over? Since Emperor Huairan is in a hurry, then this consort will take a step back. Before Wen Fan could finish his words, Chu Luiwei, who was beside him, smiled and spoke. Because of this sentence, a crack appeared in the originally hostile atmosphere. Everyone turned to look at him. Who couldn't tell that the fight for the carriage was a fight for status? Was she really going to admit defeat so easily? Wen Fan could not help but remind him in a low voice. Do you really want to do this? This is... Chu Luiwei didn't seem to care about the gazes around him. Her eyes curved into crescents as she smiled brightly. That's right. Anyway, we're not in a hurry today, so what's the harm in taking a step back? We're all here for the invitation. So isn't it good to be happy? Why make things unpleasant over such a small matter? After hearing this, everyone felt that Chu Luiwe was really afraid of Taiyu dynasty, which was why she was willing to compromise. For a moment, a trace of disdain appeared on many people's faces. They had heard that the Tianling dynasty had suffered a great loss, and now it seemed that it was true. They hadn't even officially entered Linzhou City, and they were already being bullied like this. Wouldn't they be trampled on in the future? This Shangguan, you didn't seem like a good person. Tan Taichen smiled and cupped his hands. Then this consort will thank you in advance. Chu Luiwe smiled and nodded, as if she really didn't care. Then Tan Taichen led his people to the fourth carriage. Tantai Ruoli sneered and glanced at Chu Luiwe disdainfully when she brushed past her. Puffed! It seems that some people really don't understand that even if they're all emperors, there's still a difference between them. Shangguan, you didn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as them. Chang Wanzhou's wrist twitched slightly, as if he was about to attack. Chu Luiwe glanced at them and signaled them to calm down. The silent and oppressive atmosphere made them even more sullen. When Fan looked apologetic and said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. It's all my fault for being too incompetent." Chu Luiwe shook her head and walked toward the carriage on the right. "Let's go too." Tan Taichen and the others quickly reached the most luxurious carriage. Just as he was about to get in, he heard a clear voice again. "Emperor Huairan, please wait." Tan Taichen turned his head and saw Chu Luiwe standing beside the carriage and looking over with a smile. This consort has never been to Lin province before and has never met anyone from the Dark North Imperial family. This time, Emperor Huairan wants to meet the Dark North Emperor first to play chess and chat with him. For the sake of this carriage, please introduce this consort to him and put in a few good words. This way, when we officially meet in the future, this consort can have a few more words with him. Tan Taichen was stunned. He didn't say that he would enter the palace today. After all, the Dark North Emperor's status was slightly higher than his, and he wasn't someone he could meet just because he wanted to. Now that Shangguan Yu said this, wouldn't it be inappropriate if he didn't go today? But this carriage had already been snatched. He vaguely felt that he had jumped into the trap that the other party had dug. He couldn't jump, but he also could not jump. Digression. I'm not sure about the time. Sorry. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from AI Network. Chapter 9:35. Tan Taichen was inwardly annoyed. This Shangguan Yu might look harmless on the surface, but who knew that she was full of evil tricks? The moment she said those words, she left him with no way out. Her meaning was clear. When she met the Dark North Emperor, she would definitely bring up today's matter. Although it felt good to snatch a good carriage, it wouldn't be nice if others knew about it. Tan Taichen gritted his teeth. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Chu Luiwe blinked and teased him with a half-smile. What? Is Emperor Huairan unwilling to help with such a small matter? Tan Taichen had no choice but to say, "Why would I? It's just a small matter. I'll help if I can. However, I'm not feeling well today. Whether I'll go to the palace to meet you is another matter." Inhao hurriedly said, "Emperor Huairan must be exhausted from the long journey, right? I'll send you to your residence to rest first." With this excuse, Tan Taichen's expression improved. He nodded and boarded the carriage. When the curtain fell, it blocked the view of Chu Luiwe and the others. Tan Taichen heaved a sigh of relief. He leaned against the wall of the carriage and frowned in annoyance. This Shangguan Yu doesn't seem to be as easy to deal with as it seems. After these two confrontations, the two sides could be considered to have formed a grudge. Today, she made a fuss about the carriage incident. Who knows what she'll do in the future? It's better to be on guard. After Tan Taichen boarded the carriage, Tantai Ruoli and the others also boarded the carriages behind. "Let's go." At Inhao's command, the carriages drove toward the city gate. However, no matter how one looked at it, it seemed like they were fleeing. One fan looked at Chu Luiwe in surprise. Although the new emperor of the Tianling dynasty looked to be only 16 or 17 years old, she seemed to be quite scheming and resourceful. She was able to talk and laugh in front of so many people and force that old fox Tan Taichun to the point of speechlessness. Normal people couldn't do that. He couldn't help but change his opinion of Chu Luiyue. His attitude became more respectful, and he wanted to apologize with an apologetic expression. I'm to blame for this matter. It's not your fault. Chu Luiyue glanced at the carriage in the distance and smiled faintly. They're just trying to intimidate me. Without Tan Taichen's connivance, Yin Hao would not dare to rob her openly no matter how arrogant he was. Unfortunately, I don't fall for that trick. This time, she would give them a small counterattack. If Tan Taichun was tactful and behaved himself, she would let it go. But if they didn't, when that time comes, they would All right, let's get going, Chu Luiyue said as she got into the carriage. Elder Chun Ku and the others got into the carriage one after another. Then, she lifted the curtain and glanced at Wen Fan. By the way, since we're in Lin City, you'll be in charge of all our affairs. Then, I have a request. Wen Fan straightened his body subconsciously and asked respectfully, Please say it. Wen Fan will do his best. Chu Luiyue's red lips curled slightly. It's not a difficult request. But if the same thing happens again, you don't have to worry. Just fight back. I'll bear the consequences. She came to Linzhou City to rescue her father from the tiger's den, not to be wronged and bullied by others. Wen Fan was startled by the coldness between her eyebrows. Suddenly, he felt as if he had eaten a tranquilizer in his heart. Yes, Chu Luiyue's lips curved into a smile as she looked up at the towering city gate in the distance. Let's go. After passing through the city gate, the carriages continued to move forward. Tan Taichun sat in the carriage with his eyes closed, deep in thought. Gradually, he heard all kinds of noises around him. It was very lively. They must have entered a bustling city. However, the noises made Tan Taichun even more frustrated. He wanted to relax and have a good rest in the carriage, but the scene just now kept replaying in his mind. He was checkmated by a mere Shang Wanyu. He felt so aggrieved no matter how he thought about it. Initially, he only wanted to teach them a lesson and let them know who they could and could not afford to offend. However, he didn't expect that Shang Wanyu would take advantage of the situation to make a fuss. Before he even got into the carriage, she had already thought of a way to complain to the Dark North Emperor in front of everyone. If he had known, he wouldn't have snatched the carriage. What a waste of time. At this moment, the carriage finally stopped. Yin Hao's voice came from outside. Your Majesty, we've arrived. You may get off the carriage. Tan Taichun shook his head and threw the messy content to the back of his mind. Then, he lifted the curtain and got off the carriage. After he stood still, he raised his head and looked in front of him. When he saw the situation in front of him, he was surprised. This is, Your Majesty, this is the resting place that the Crown Prince ordered for all of you to prepare, Yin Hao said with a fawning expression. This time, we prepared a total of 4 courtyards in the palace. Each of the 4 great empires will live in one. However, this is the most spacious and luxurious of the 4 courtyards. Back then, there were quite a few ancestors who had lived here. Not to mention, the Crown Prince personally ordered people to renovate it a few years ago. This place can be said to be the best one. When Tan Taichun saw the extraordinarily luxurious door, he already knew that this courtyard was extraordinary. When he heard this, he couldn't hide his excitement. This is the Crown Prince's special place for me? Of course. Yin Hao smiled fawningly. If it wasn't specially designated, those who came earlier would have already moved in. Obviously, this place was reserved for the Taiyu dynasty. In fact, the 2 dynasties that came earlier were stronger than the Taiyu dynasty. Unfortunately, he couldn't beat the other 2 and had to compete with Wen Fan in the end. He didn't expect this place to be reserved for them by the Crown Prince. This was really a stroke of luck. Although Yin Hao didn't know why the Crown Prince would do this, he was still very happy. As long as he could serve them well, he would be able to achieve great things in the future. Please, Yin Hao said eagerly. Tan Taichun looked calm. However, The slight smile on his face and the expectant look in his eyes revealed that he was very excited and happy about this matter. Normally, an emperor wouldn't be too interested in the place where other emperors lived before. However, this place was different. This was the courtyard where the emperor of the Biming dynasty lived before. To him, this was no doubt an intangible honor. If he could live in this courtyard, he would be respected in front of the other empires. He straightened his clothes and walked forward with his head held high. However, he was stopped when he reached the door. Clang! 2 spears crossed each other. The guard in charge of guarding the door said coldly, "I'm sorry, this place is not reserved for you." Digression, translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 9:36. How dare you? Inhao's expression changed when he saw the situation, and he shouted, "Do you know who is standing here?" However, the 2 guards' expressions did not change. They were still expressionless. The residence of the Taiyu dynasty is on the street next door, not here. Inhao choked. They knew Tan Taichen's identity, but they were still so insistent. Could it be impossible? You must have made a mistake. Inhao stepped forward and tried to argue. There were 4 courtyards in total. The first 2 were already occupied, so there were only 2 left. As for the remaining 2, it was obvious that this place was better. Only the people from the Taiyu dynasty and the Tianling dynasty had not moved in yet. Wasn't it obvious who should live in the better courtyards? However, these 2 guards were in charge of guarding the courtyards. They were not weak and were not afraid of Inhao. "Master In, we are just following orders. Please don't make things difficult for us." Inhao wanted to say more, but Tan Taichen could not help but laugh and speak. "Say, if this place isn't for the Taiyu dynasty to live in, could it be for the Tianling dynasty to live in?" As his voice fell, the 2 guards actually nodded in unison. That's right. Tan Taichen's remaining words were stuck in his throat. Even Inhao's mouth was agape, as if he had swallowed an egg. "Well, what? It seems like this place is for me." Just as both sides fell into dead silence, a familiar voice came from behind them. The few of them turned around and saw Chu Luiyue lightly jump down from the horse carriage. The street was wide enough for 2 carriages to travel side by side. Therefore, their carriage stopped beside Tan Taichen's carriage. Chu Luiyue and the others had heard their conversation clearly. She leaned against the carriage and crossed her arms. Her lips curled into an evil smile. She was born with good looks, and this smile of hers was even more beautiful, moving one's heart. "What nonsense are you talking about?" At this point, Tantai Rooli had also heard those words. When she saw Chu Luiyue's smile, she felt that it was very ironic. She hurriedly walked to the door and hollered at the 2 guards. "Orders? Whose orders are you following?" The 2 guards frowned and glanced at her. Of course, it's on the Crown Prince's orders. For the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain this time, the invitations from the few great empires were all handled by the Crown Prince. Naturally, the accommodation arrangements were no exception. The Crown Prince had specifically instructed that this was for the Tianling dynasty. After saying that, the 2 guards bowed to Chu Luiyue. They were much more respectful and polite. "His Highness the Crown Prince said that you can rest assured and stay here. If you need anything, just ask." This attitude, compared to just now, was like heaven and earth. Chu Luiyue rubbed her chin. The smile on her lips deepened, and she immediately walked forward. Her well-tailored and exquisite boots fell on the ground, making a rhythmic sound. It was like a heavy hammer, hitting the hearts of Tan Taichen and the others. She walked to the front of the door and stood beside the few people. Immediately, she seemed to blink her eyes in embarrassment. "So, it's really for me? I thought you were joking just now. Look at this. How embarrassing is this? Huayran Emperor, I didn't want to fight with you for this. Please don't misunderstand." As she spoke, she glanced at Tan Taichen. "Sigh, it wasn't easy to come here. In the end, we still have to return to another street. How troublesome. Everyone, I'm really sorry. If we had arrived first, we might not have made such a joke." Tan Taichen felt like he had been slapped in the face. They were the ones who had snatched the carriage first, but now they had clearly shot themselves in the foot. They had lost all face. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have made such an unnecessary move. Tantai Ruoli couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't help but sneer and look at the two guards. You said this was the Crown Prince's order. Do you have any evidence? Don't tell me you guys acted on your own and did it on purpose. The moment she said that, the aura around the two guards became dangerous. Even Inhao couldn't help but complain. Did this Tanai Ruoli have a brain? Not to mention Lin Province. Even in the entire Biming dynasty, no one dared to falsify the Crown Prince's order. No one dared to go against his will, unless they were tired of living and wanted to drag their entire clan down with them. She said that without any respect for the Crown Prince. Eldest Princess Tantai, please be careful with your words. One of the guards warned her sternly. Tantai Ruoli was shocked by the aura. The arrogance and willfulness, she had disappeared instantly. She subconsciously took a step back and her face turned pale. I was just asking. These people were really scary. She only said one sentence. Eldest Princess, please don't say anything else. Otherwise, it will only make things worse. Even Inhao couldn't help but speak up. It was fine if she wanted to die, but she shouldn't drag others into it. Seeing that the Crown Prince was involved in this matter, Inhao didn't dare to ask any more questions. He quickly begged for mercy. Please don't misunderstand. It's all my fault that I didn't ask around properly. We'll leave now. However, I don't want to tell the Crown Prince about this matter. It will only make him more worried. I'll treat you two to a drink next time. How about it? After a long period of humility and flattery, the two guards finally nodded their heads. Inhao heaved a sigh of relief. He moved closer to Tan Taichun and said in a low voice, let's go back now. I'll bring you to your residence. It's not far away. Tan Taichun had been the emperor for his entire life. He had never encountered such a cowardly situation where he had to beg for mercy before he could leave. Even if he wasn't the one begging for mercy, he had completely lost his face. His face was burning with pain. He wished he could find a hole to hide in. He took a deep breath. Let's go. As soon as he turned around, Chu Luiwei asked with a smile, Hey, why don't you come in and have a seat? Tan Taichun's heart was blocked. His face was full of excitement. He clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. Finally, he suppressed the anger in his heart and said coldly without turning his head, No need. After that, he quickly got into the carriage and left the street. Chu Luiwei waved and smiled brightly. Come often when you're free. Tan Taichun almost vomited blood. Digression. The carriage number was 4 and 5. It was wrong. It has been corrected. That's all for today's update. I'll continue tomorrow. It's so big. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 9:37. The people from the Taiyu dynasty didn't say anything else and left quickly. No matter how one looked at them, they looked rather pathetic. Chu Liwei only chuckled when the carriages had completely disappeared. She retracted her gaze and looked at the two guards. This way, please. The two guards each took a step back and invited them in respectfully. Chu Liu's eyes darkened. She didn't know what that Jun Jiuqing was thinking. He purposely left the best courtyard for her. On the surface, it looked like he was taking care of her, but he was actually digging a hole for her. Today's incident would definitely spread quickly. It wasn't just the Taiyu dynasty. The other two dynasties would definitely be unhappy with them if they heard the news. The weakest person occupied the best spot. This kind of thing would cause disputes no matter where it was. Moreover, this was related to the reputation of each dynasty. Who knew what kind of trouble it would cause in the future? He was purposely pushing her in front of everyone. However, Chu Luiwei narrowed her eyes. Since the other party was so blatantly provoking, she would just accept it. She took a step forward and stepped through the door. Luyu, do you know that Prince Biming? Why is he doing this? After entering the courtyard, Mu Hongyu couldn't help but move closer and ask softly when she saw the magnificent surroundings. Chu Luiwei shook her head. I don't know him. I've never seen him before. Then what's his reason for doing this? Mu Hongyu looked around and felt a little worried. This place is great, but wouldn't we become targets by doing this publicly? Chu Luiwei smiled. Even someone as straightforward as Mu Hongyu could see the other party's intention. It was obvious how straightforward his thoughts were. It's a waste not to take benefits that are delivered to our doorstep. Chu Luiwei raised her hand and pointed as she walked. A few Dark North Emperors have lived here before. It's a place where the dragon Qi gathers. For them to like it so much, it's enough to prove that this place isn't ordinary. Just the fact that there was a level 9 Xian formation in this courtyard was already a huge gain. If you cultivate here, your cultivation speed will increase by quite a bit. Exactly. Others have already bullied us. Could it be that we still have to swallow this humiliation? You're is right. We are definitely staying here. Elder Su Jin's eyes lit up. As he spoke, he quickly walked inside. I will take a look at this Xian formation first. Remember to draw those Xian formations for me later. Just as he finished speaking, the figure had already disappeared. Sigh. Xiao Ran wanted to call out to her, but she hesitated and glanced at Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei held back his laughter. Once Master Su Jin started looking at the profound formation, she became intoxicated and couldn't care about anything else. Elder Xiao Ran, please take care of her. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Xiao Ran's face, but she still looked at her gratefully and chased after her. Swish! Jian Fengqi waved his fan, looking confident and unrestrained. His pair of icy eyes were filled with curiosity and gossip as he looked at Chu Luiwei. Sigh, I say, you really don't have any relationship with this Jun Jiuqing? Chu Luiwei glanced at him coldly. I can let you have some relationship with him. Jian Fengqi felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately retreated tactfully. This young master was just joking. Actually, Jinghong asked this young master to ask. You and Jinghong? Just as he was about to argue, Jian Fengqi covered his mouth. Let's go. Let's cultivate. After this, we will have to compete with the geniuses from the other empires. It won't be good if we lose and embarrass ourselves. After speaking, she pulled Yuan Jinghong and quickly left. Your Majesty, I will also take my leave first, Wu Ming said respectfully. Although he was not the weakest among the people who came with him, he could vaguely sense that these people were extremely talented. After only staying with them for a few days, he could sense that the aura of these people had improved significantly. This made him nervous, and he secretly made up his mind to cultivate more here. Chu Luiwei smiled and nodded. Wu Ming was the eldest disciple of the master of Destiny Mansion. He was talented, and more importantly, he was down-to-earth and serious. This was also one of the reasons why she brought him along. Judging from his behavior, he clearly felt a sense of crisis and planned to cultivate and improve his strength. Of course, this was what she wanted to see. Now that he could stay here, it would be more beneficial for his cultivation. He might even be able to gain the upper hand in the upcoming competition. Wu Ming responded and left. Mu Hongyu then followed Jian Fengqi and the others, intending to learn from each other. Recently, she had learned some new moves from her master, and she was itching for a fight. After the few people left, Elder Chun Ku asked hesitantly, Your Majesty, are you really not worried? Although there are benefits to living here, but he always felt that this trip seemed to be a little unsettling. It was as if someone had already arranged everything. Chu Luiwei raised her eyebrows slightly, and there was a hint of slyness at the corner of her eyes, but there was a cold glint in the bottom of her eyes. What is there to worry about? I dare to come to Lin Province, so I dare to stay in this side courtyard. She lifted her feet and walked forward, her shoulders straight, and her aura awe-inspiring. I don't care what kind of demons and ghosts they are. I can suppress them. The benefits of living here, I will definitely take them. Bombing Royal Palace. Hunting ground. Ordinary royal palaces did not have hunting grounds, and most of them were set up outside the palace. But in the Beiming Royal Palace, there was a huge hunting ground in the palace. This hunting ground occupied an area of the Aurora, and the edges were high fences made of refined iron. Each of them was as thick as an adult's thigh, and they were arranged neatly. There were also barbs on them, and if one was not careful, a large piece of flesh would be hooked off. If one looked carefully, One could see spots of blood on the fences. Some had been there for a long time and had already dried up. Some seemed to have just been left behind, and it was extremely red. The entire hunting ground was emitting a strong smell of blood. In addition, there was a barrier above the hunting ground that completely enveloped it. Not a single bird or beast could break free from it. At this moment, there was a person lying in the middle of the hunting ground. Blood was flowing from his neck, and it flowed all over the ground. He lay there motionless, and he seemed to be on the verge of death. If not for the weak rise and fall of his chest, one would think that he was already dead. But in fact, he was in a state worse than death, because a black and white bird had used its claws to tear open his chest and was devouring his heart. Beside him, several magical beasts formed a circle and were staring at this scene greedily. But even though they were drooling, they did not dare to take a step forward, because there was a man standing outside the fences. "Your Highness, the people from the Tianling dynasty have already stayed in that side courtyard." A guard quickly went forward, knelt on one knee, and reported respectfully, "Wonderful Book House." Chapter 9:38. Is she satisfied? Jun Jiuqing stood with his hands behind his back. There seemed to be a lazy smile in his voice. She should be satisfied, the guard said hesitantly. Jun Jiuqing turned his head slightly, revealing a perfect side profile that seemed to have been carved by a knife. His sword-like eyebrows were slanted to his temples, his nose was high, and his upper lip was slightly curled into a seductive arc. It added a touch of devilish charm. Vaguely, there seemed to be a touch of devilish red in his eyes, which were half covered by his long eyelashes. Even though only half of his face was visible, it was not hard to imagine how devilish his face was. This low voice dragged out the last syllable, and there was a touch of danger in it. The guard immediately lowered his head and hurriedly explained, "It's the people from the Taiyu dynasty. There was a misunderstanding with them." After that, he recounted everything that had happened earlier from the beginning to the end. Jun Jiuqing was silent for a moment after he finished listening. Then he chuckled. "I didn't expect Tan Taichun to be so impatient. I really overestimated him. Your Highness is the mastermind. Everything is under your control," the guard said hurriedly. Then, "Do you want me to send someone?" "No need." Jun Jiuqing raised his hand and stopped the guard. He seemed to have thought of something, and the smile on his face deepened. "Her temper really hasn't changed at all." The guard was shocked. He was the Crown Prince's confidant. He could more or less figure out the Crown Prince's temper and thoughts. But this time, he could not guess the Crown Prince's plan at all. The Crown Prince seemed to have a special relationship with the newly ascended Shang Wanyu of the Tianling dynasty. If he was good to her, he would let her live in that courtyard so openly. If he was not good to her, when he mentioned that person, his tone was a little more interested. Who else could receive such treatment from the Crown Prince in the past? He could not figure out and did not dare to think too much about it. He could only do whatever the Crown Prince asked him to do. However, one thing was for sure. Shang Wanyu wasn't someone who could be easily provoked. "Let's go. Just wait and see," Jun Jiuqing said lazily. "Yes." The guard quickly retreated. Jun Jiuqing looked up. In the hunting ground, the man's heart was almost completely devoured, and he was completely silent. The black and white bird suddenly stretched its neck and screeched. A rank 7 martial artist's 5 internal organs were connected, and the heart was the place that accumulated the most power. After devouring the heart, its aura naturally grew stronger as well. Jun Jiuqing's voice was beautiful, as if it was soaked in alcohol. "All right, let's go." With that, the bird flapped its wings and flew away. In an instant, the surrounding magical beasts that had been waiting for a long time all pounced forward. Blood splattered everywhere. Not long after, they began to fight among themselves. The bird stood at the top of a fence and looked at the scene with a fierce look in its eyes. It was high up in the air. The scene was extremely bloody and brutal, but Jun Jiuqing seemed to be used to it. He gently touched the corner of his eyes, as if he was satisfied and satisfied. Then, he turned around and left. Inhao led the people from the Taiyu dynasty to the villa on the street next door. He was trembling with fear and did not dare to speak too much. When they reached the entrance, he braced himself and asked Tan Tai-chun and the rest to come down. "Your Majesty, we are here." Tan Tai-chun and the rest got down from the carriage and quickly looked around. Their faces became gloomier. With just one look, they could tell that this villa was obviously a few levels lower than the previous one, regardless of whether it was in terms of scale or other aspects. What kind of lousy place is this? Tantai Ruoli could not help but curse. They were from the Taiyu dynasty. Even if they were not as noble as the Biming dynasty, it was too degrading to live in such a place. He's looking down on us. If everyone lived in such a place, it would be fine. However, the people from the Tianling dynasty lived in a much better place than them. How could they be calm with such a difference in treatment? Inhao's head was covered in cold sweat. Princess Tantai, this villa was personally arranged by the crown prince. It is also the Biming dynasty's villa. How can it be a lousy place? Don't say such things again in the future. As he spoke, he could not help but say to Tan Tai-chun, "Your Majesty, you should at least say something." If they kept talking like this, they would get into trouble sooner or later. Did they think that this was the territory of the Taiyu dynasty? Although Tan Tai-chun was also frustrated, he had been an emperor for many years. He knew what to say and what not to say. He gave Tanai Ruoli a warning look and said coldly, "Ruoli, have you forgotten what father told you before?" He told her to keep a low profile. She had to keep a low profile. If what she said just now reached Prince Biming's ears, it would not do them any good. Tantai Ruoli reluctantly kept her mouth shut. The rest of the people also felt conflicted because of the series of events that happened. They all kept quiet. It was already embarrassing enough that things had turned out this way. If they continued to harp on it, wouldn't they become a laughing stock? Seeing that they had all quieted down, Inhao led them in. After settling them down, Inhao took his leave and went back to report. As soon as he left, Tantai Ruoli could not help but curse. This is so infuriating. So infuriating. Her eyes were burning with anger, and her face was red because of anger. "Father, we can't just let this go." Tan Tai-chun sat in his chair with a solemn expression. "Then what do you want? They've already made it clear that this was all arranged by Prince Darknorth. Could it be that you're going to find trouble with him?" Tantai Ruoli was speechless. Of course, she knew that he was someone she could not afford to offend. Now, more than half of the power in the Biming dynasty was in his hands. It was not an exaggeration to say that he could cover the sky with one hand. Didn't they say that Prince Biming has always been ruthless and decisive? Did he arrange this because the people of the Tianling dynasty had some connections with him? Otherwise, she really could not understand how the weakest Tianling had the right to enjoy the best treatment. Logically speaking, the Tianling dynasty did not even have the right to come to the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain. Even if they didn't have the right, they still came. Tan Tai-chun's expression was solemn. If that Shang Wanyu is really acquainted with Prince Biming, then this is really troublesome. The room fell into a dead silence. After a while, a young man's voice sounded. "Your Majesty, let them be arrogant for now. When the ancient Phoenix Mountain opens, we will know whether they are strong or weak, right? They lived in the best place. If they ended up in the last place, wouldn't that be even more shameful and embarrassing?" Tan Tai-chun's expression changed slightly. Tantai Ruoli's eyes lit up. "Yes, Father, what Zifeng said makes sense. Let them be arrogant first. When the time comes, we will use our strength to give him a slap. Let's see if that Shang Wanyu still has the face to be arrogant." Wonderful book room. Chapter 9:39. Night fell, and a few stars sprinkled down from the black night sky. It was silent both inside and outside the courtyard. Only the night breeze that passed through the hall brought a hint of coolness. Chu Luiwei was cultivating in her room. Her eyes were tightly shut, and she sat cross-legged with her aura lingering around her. Occasionally, scarlet and transparent flames could be seen darting out and dancing around her body. After a moment, she raised her right hand. Her fair and slender finger tapped lightly in the air. A streak of silver force surged out and quickly transformed into several streaks of light that intertwined to form a pattern. Then, she waved her left hand lightly, and several streaks of force also surged out. These silver streaks of light outlined the first strange pattern, which immediately connected with the previous one. If Elder Su-jin and the others were here, they would be able to see that this Xian formation was very similar to the level 9 Xian formation they saw at the border, because this was what Chu Luiyue had copied based on its original appearance. To ordinary people who did not have the talent to become a Xian master, Xian formations were just a bunch of strange lines and patterns to them. No matter how they looked at it, it was very difficult to remember, because Xian formations had their own rules, and it was not as simple as memorizing it in a book. The complexity of a level 9 Xian formation was even more unimaginable. Even a high-level Xian master would feel dizzy after looking at it for a while, and it was impossible to memorize it. However, Chu Luiyue was different. She had already cultivated to the level of a level 8 Xian master in her previous life. Although she had changed her physical body and her strength was limited, her cognitive ability was still at the level of a level 8 Xian master. In addition, she originally had astonishing talent in this area, so memorizing those level 9 Xian formations was not a difficult task. What she needed to do now was to simulate this Xian formation as much as possible. Time passed by bit. Chu Luiyue traced it bit by bit according to the pattern that was engraved in her mind. The countless silver streaks of light in front of her also gradually outlined the rough outline of the Xian formation. The lustrous light reflected on her face, which was like porcelain and jade, clear and clean. Thousands of miles away, the clear and crystalline waves on the boundless azure water surface sparkled. Several islands floated above it, and the thick forest condensed into a white mist that lingered around it. It was like a paradise. Above the void, a golden dot of light suddenly appeared. Following that, the golden light rapidly expanded, forming a golden halo. Space fluctuated and rippled. After that, a tall figure walked out from within. It was Rong Xiao. At this time, he was wearing a black brocade robe, and the aura around him was cold. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, the gentleness of the seventh prince had disappeared. What replaced it was an indifference and coldness that made one's heart tremble. The suppression on his body disappeared, and his aura instantly soared. At first glance, he was like a god of death that had fought his way out of hell. His blood and chi were awe-inspiring. Woo, the horn sounded. "Welcome back, Your Highness." At this moment, countless people looked in the direction of Rong Xiao and knelt down in unison. Rong Xiao's figure moved, and he headed for the floating island in the middle. He walked across the water, but there was still a small distance between his feet and the surface of the water. With one hand behind his back, he seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll. However, in just a few steps, he had already walked a great distance. When he arrived in front of the island, he leaped and soared into the sky. Then he floated back down. His tall figure was reflected on the black jade slab. Rong Xiao continued to walk forward. The soldiers in charge of guarding on both sides bowed respectfully. At the front was Rong Xiao's palace. This place was heavily guarded, and ordinary people could not get close at all. Usually, it was very quiet, but today, there seemed to be someone waiting outside the main hall. When he heard the commotion, he also knelt down in the direction of Rong Xiao. Rong Xiao took a look and narrowed his eyes. The person looked familiar, as if it was someone he knew. When he got closer, Rong Xiao confirmed his guess. As expected, this person was none other than 36 revered Elder Ming's only nephew, Ming Yao. His position in the clan was not low now. As an elder, he was second only to the clan leader. Usually, they would rarely appear here. Even if there was something, they would look for 36 revered Elder Ming. There was almost no one who looked for Rong Xiao directly like this. Rong Xiao stopped in his tracks when he was in front of Rong Xiao. "Elder Ming Yao, why are you here today?" "Greetings, Your Highness Saint." Ming Yao quickly bowed. A guard at the side cupped his fists and reported with some difficulty. Elder Ming has been here for 3 days. Your Highness, Elder Ming Yao has been waiting here since 3 days ago. He said that he has something important to report to you personally. Rong Xiu looked up slightly. Where is 36, revered Elder Ming? Your Highness, 36 revered Elder Ming has been in seclusion for the past few days. He purposely picked a time when 36 revered Elder Ming was not around. Rong Xiu's thin lips curled up slightly. Elder Ming Yao, please get up. If there is anything, just say it. Ming Yao thanked him first before getting up. However, facing Rong Xiu alone like this, he couldn't help but feel nervous. He tried his best to pull out a smile. Your Highness, actually, Ming Yao is here to represent the wishes of many clans. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at him indifferently. Oh, Ming Yao swallowed his saliva with difficulty and braced himself to say, This. It has been a few years since you ascended to the position of the saint, but the position of the princess consort is still empty. Coincidentally, your birthday is coming soon. We were thinking, why don't you take this opportunity to take a look? Digression continued at 6 p.m. I accidentally posted the 3rd chapter at the front. Everyone, make do with it first. The editor is not working today, so I can't edit it. I will edit it in 2 days. Man mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 940. As soon as he said that, Ming Yao suddenly felt the surrounding air turn cold. It was bone-chilling. For a moment, his sharp sixth sense almost made his legs go soft, and he directly knelt down. But this kind of biting cold aura was fleeting, as if it had never appeared. Ming Yao gathered his courage and quickly looked up, only to see Rong Xiu's cold expression. His eyes were deep, and he couldn't tell what he was thinking. He hurriedly retracted his gaze and lowered his head, his heart on tenterhooks. Who didn't know that His Highness Holy Son didn't get close to women? Ever since he became the Holy Son, in these few years, who knew how many people had mentioned this matter? But every time, it was directly rejected by him. Until one time, an honorable elder really couldn't stand it anymore and secretly arranged for 2 women to serve him. Rong Xiu didn't fall for this trick, but he couldn't refuse this honorable elder's face, so he directly sent the 2 women to do chores. Originally, it was nothing much, but those 2 women couldn't even enter the main hall, so they were unwilling to accept it. They actually plotted together to drug Rong Xiu's tea, wanting to use this to curry favor with him. But these 2 people didn't expect that Rong Xiu himself was extremely skilled in medicine, and that cup of tea was smashed to pieces on the spot. And those 2 women were directly dragged out and beaten to death in front of everyone. The most important thing was that Rong Xiu even specially invited that honorable elder to personally come and take a look. That honorable elder knew that he was in the wrong, so he didn't dare to say anything after being tricked by Rong Xiu. After the matter was over, he directly went into seclusion. This incident spread like wildfire. Everyone knew that Rong Xiu was cruel and merciless, and he was not soft-hearted even when it came to women. Hence, they all gave up on such thoughts. After that, Rong Xiu was quiet for a long time. No matter how anxious the people below were, they didn't dare to do anything out of line. But as time passed, Rong Xiu had been the Holy Son for a few years, but he still hadn't chosen a princess consort. So everyone's thoughts finally became active again. The position of princess consort was a highly sought-after position. Who wouldn't want it for themselves? If a girl from any clan could marry Rong Xiu as his princess consort, the entire clan would ascend together with her. When the benefits of something were greater than what was expected, the courage and motivation people would have for it would be greater. Ming Yao dared to come this time because, on one hand, he had the support of 36 respected Elder Ming. On the other hand, it was because this reason was too legitimate and could not be denied. In the past, Rong Xiu did not want to marry her. Perhaps it was because he had just taken the throne and his political power was not stable, so he did not want to act rashly. But now, he had almost secured his position. If he still insisted on not marrying, he would not be able to continue. It seems that Elder Ming Yao and the others are very concerned about Ai's marriage. After a short moment of silence, Rong Xiu spoke. Upon hearing this, Ming Yao was delighted. He wasn't angry, but he didn't reject it either. Was there a chance? He hurriedly bowed and said, "Your Highness, the Holy Sun, is the backbone of all the clans. Your princess consort position has been pending for a long time, so everyone is naturally very concerned about it. This time, Ming Yao came here not only for you, but also for all the clans." Upon hearing this, Rong Xiu seemed to be quite interested and asked, "Oh, so it seems that Elder Ming Yao already has a plan?" Upon hearing this, Ming Yao was instantly encouraged and hurriedly said, "Your Highness, to be honest, although you have never taken the initiative to consider these matters, we have to consider for you. We have already chosen the most outstanding girls among the clans. As long as you nod your head and invite them to meet you at your birthday banquet, we will definitely be able to choose a girl that you are satisfied with." Rong Xiu didn't deny it and smiled. "How many clans are there? I didn't pay much attention to them before." Ming Yao said a string of names. Other than them, there are also a few other clans that had good relations with them. They were all involved in this matter. Rong Xiu listened patiently and suddenly asked, "It seems that you have been preparing for a long time. Why haven't I heard 36 respected Elder Ming mention it?" Ming Yao suddenly felt guilty, and his eyes flickered as he laughed. This 36 respected Elder Ming is usually elusive. How would we dare to bother him with these matters? In fact, when they came to meet 36 respected Elder Ming previously, they had already mentioned this matter to him. However, they were directly rejected by 36 respected Elder Ming and were warned not to even think about these matters. Rong Xiu was the Holy Sun, and he naturally had his own decisions on these matters. If anyone dared to interfere with his matters, they would be courting death. However, after Ming Yao and the rest returned, they still weren't willing to give up this opportunity after thinking about it. What if Rong Xiu picked a girl from their clan? The reason why their clan could reach their current status was all because of 36 respected Elder Ming. However, he was old after all, and in most cases, he wouldn't speak up for their clan. Instead, he would try his best to avoid arousing suspicion. This made them faintly disappointed. They felt that 36 respected Elder Ming was doing this purely to protect his position and win the Holy Sun's trust. Instead of continuing like this, they might as well give it their all. Therefore, they joined forces with others to complete this matter together. This time, they took action especially when 36 respected Elder Ming wasn't around. Rong Xiu nodded in understanding. "I see." His thin lips curled up slightly. What a pity. 36 respected Elder Ming had racked his brains for many years to prevent his clan from causing trouble and protect them as much as possible. However, no matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't stop it. Once a person was greedy, they would easily lose their brains. Seeing Rong Xiu smile, Ming Yao didn't feel any danger at all. Instead, he was secretly happy, thinking that this was a sure thing. Since that's the case, why don't we invite the other clans to participate as well? Rong Xiu said indifferently. Okay. What? Ming Yao almost twisted his tongue. He looked at Rong Xiu in shock, almost suspecting that he had heard wrongly. Other clans? There are still 2 months before Ai's birthday. At that time, all the clans will come to celebrate. Wouldn't it be more convenient to do it together? Looking at Rong Xiu's expression, he didn't seem to be joking. Ming Yao suddenly felt that things seemed to be developing in a direction that was out of his control. But this was something that the few clans had discussed and agreed upon. If everyone came to participate, then what advantage would they have? There were so many clans. Who knew who Rong Xiu would choose? One had to know that there were countless women who wanted to marry Rong Xiu. In the past, because he didn't have such thoughts, no one dared to say anything. However, once he said that he was going to choose a princess consort, who knew how intense the competition would be? If he chose someone else in the end, this trip would be considered as a waste of time. Ming Yao wanted to object, but the person standing in front of him was the most honorable Holy Sun. How could he dare to say no? In the end, he could only bite the bullet and agree. Everything will follow the Holy Sun's orders. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 941. In the evening, Yanqing rushed back from outside and went straight to the main hall. When he entered the room, Yanqing saw Rong Xiao sitting leisurely by the window, playing chess. Yanqing immediately saluted. "Master." Rong Xiao stared at the chessboard, as if thinking about the next move. He didn't even raise his head and said yes. "How's the investigation going?" Replying to Master, "This subordinate has already obtained a part of the evidence. The rest can be obtained immediately when the time is right." Rong Xiao nodded with satisfaction. "I always trust you when you do things." All he had to do was wait. "Yes." Yanqing got up and stood aside. He couldn't help but look at his master again, thinking of the rumors he heard when he came back. His heart was like being scratched by a cat. But his master always had his own reasons for doing things. This time, it should be the same. "What do you want to ask?" "Just say it," Rong Xiao said lightly. Yanqing hesitated for a moment and finally spoke. "Master, there's a rumor outside that you're going to choose a princess at your birthday banquet. Is this true?" "Of course it's true." Rong Xiao smiled, and the corner of his lips raised into a meaningful arc. No matter how bold Ming Yao is, he wouldn't dare to spread rumors about I. What's more, he spread the news on purpose. Otherwise, he wouldn't fly so fast as if he had wings. Yanqing was puzzled. "But madam, I also want to finalize this matter as soon as possible." "Pa!" Rong Xiao put down the chess piece in his hand. On the chessboard, the black and white chess pieces were clearly separated, like two dragons fighting each other. With this piece, the black dragon beheaded the white dragon instantly. Everything was settled cleanly. He leaned back with a smile on his face. "I've been alone all year round, and it's indeed very lonely. It's better to give the princess position to her as soon as possible. This way, she would be able to come to his side sooner and stand side by side with him openly. It was to prevent some people from thinking about it for no reason." Bombing Empire, Lin Province. After a night of hard work, Chu Luiyue finally stopped what she was doing when the first ray of light shone in through the window. There was a huge silver barrier floating in front of her. Upon closer inspection, this barrier was formed by countless silver streams of light. It was incomparably complex, but it was also shockingly beautiful. This was clearly a replica of the Dark North Dynasty's border barrier. Even the various patterns on the Xian formations were clearly visible. She actually managed to make a complete copy of it. Chu Yue's face was somewhat pale, but her starry eyes were incomparably bright, faintly containing some unconcealable excitement. This was not the first time she had tried to simulate a level 9 profound formation. Back then, she had long broken through to level 8 mystic cultivation and stayed in this realm for a very long time. Although she hadn't had the time to advance to the next level, she had already delved into quite a few level 9 mystic formations. This had also laid down a solid foundation for her to be who she was today. However, this was the first time she had successfully constructed a connected level 9 mystic formation. Knock knock. The sound of knocking came from outside. "Your Majesty, we should set off for the palace." This was when Fan's voice. Chu Luiyue replied, "Got it." With that, she waved her sleeves. The simulated barrier in front of her instantly dissipated, transforming into streaks of silver light and quickly disappearing. Chu Luiyue got up, washed up simply, changed her clothes, and went out. Seeing Chu Luiyue come out, Wen Fan quickly bowed. With a hurried glance, he realized that Chu Luiyue seemed to be in good spirits, her eyes as bright as stars. Yesterday's incident didn't seem to have affected her at all. Moreover, the aura on her body seemed to have vaguely become stronger. Wen Fan was secretly shocked. He had long heard that this person had a rare Tianjing Yuan meridian and was a rare genius. Unfortunately, she was harmed by someone later on, and it wasn't easy for her to come back. He originally thought that she would be much weaker than before, but now, it seemed like that wasn't the case at all. Wen Fan suppressed his thoughts and respectfully invited Chu Liyue out. Elder Chinku and the others also received the news and came out one after another. The convoy from yesterday was already waiting outside the door. The group of people got on the vehicles one after another and headed towards the palace. Unexpectedly, after walking out of the street and turning a corner, they bumped into the people from Taiyu Dynasty. Wen Fan was at the front of the convoy and saw Yin Hao at first glance. At the same time, Yin Hao looked over. He recalled yesterday's incident and immediately became angry. Even his face became gloomier. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. He spat on the ground. Our convoy is in front, so we should go first. Wen Fan, why don't you guys get out of the way? After years of being bullied, Wen Fan subconsciously wanted to dodge when he saw Yin Hao getting angry. However, just as he moved, he heard a chuckle coming from the carriage behind him. Wen Fan's movement stopped. Yesterday, Shang Wenyu had told him not to compromise. She was always there for him. This gave Wen Fan a little more confidence in himself. He immediately straightened his chest, lifted his chin slightly, and stared straight at Yin Hao. I'm sorry, our street is closer to the palace, so we walked in front of you as soon as we came out. Although your convoy is in front, we're all going to enter the palace, so what's the point of being in front? If we get out of the way now, we'll only add to the trouble. He raised the long whip in his hand. Smack! The long whip fell, and the sound of it breaking through the air was heard. You guys should just follow behind. Giddy up. Digression. After dinner, I'll update a little later. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 942. Wen Fan led the carriages away, leaving a trail of dust behind him. Cough, cough. Yin Hao coughed violently. His face was red, and he could not help cursing. What the hell? Does he really think he has a powerful backer? In the past, Wen Fan was weak and timid. He was like a little chick in front of him. If he asked him to go west, he would never dare to go east. But now, he had only been with the Tianling dynasty for a day, and he had become so arrogant. He really thought he was a big shot. The crown prince had arranged that villa for them, but that did not necessarily prove anything. The Tianling dynasty. How impressive. Tan Taichun lifted the curtain and looked at the carriages disappearing in the distance. He was expressionless. Yin Hao was afraid that he would be angry, so he quickly said, Your Majesty, please don't take it to heart. They can be proud now, but they can't be proud forever. Only those with real strength can have the last laugh. Don't you think so? If it was the Tianling dynasty of the past, they might have a chance. But now, after going through so much turmoil and exhausting so much of their vitality, it was obvious that they would be at the bottom this time. At that time, they would not have the face to be so arrogant. Tan Taichun put down the curtain and said coldly, Let's go. The beaming Imperial Palace occupied a large area. It was magnificent and magnificent. It was said that the Beiming dynasty had renovated the Imperial Palace to celebrate after the Taizu successfully entered the divine realm. In the following 1,000 years, the Beiming dynasty had been protected by the Taizu, and there had been no trouble. The country was rich and the people were strong. This made their national treasury full. Every 100 years, they could withdraw a portion of the money from the national treasury to maintain the Imperial Palace. In addition, in Linzhou City, everything related to the imperial family would receive special care. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, Linzhou City was stronger than West Hill. Chu Liyue sat in the carriage, resting with his eyes closed. At first, there were some noises coming from outside, but it gradually quieted down. However, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to be a lot colder. Then, the carriage stopped. Chu Liyue opened his eyes. We're here. Wen Fan stepped forward and handed over the invitation card that he had prepared. The Tianling dynasty? The soldier in charge of guarding the gate took the invitation card and looked at it carefully. He was shocked. The fight between the Tianling dynasty and the Taiyu dynasty for the courtyard had spread like wildfire. Many people knew that Crown Prince Beiming seemed to value the people from the Tianling dynasty a lot. Therefore, Even these soldiers became nervous and didn't dare to slack off. No carriages or horses are allowed to enter the palace. Everyone, please get off the carriage and move forward. Chu Luiyue lifted the curtain and jumped down from the horse carriage. She looked up slightly and took a look. Chu Luiyue's heart trembled slightly. This time, she was going to take a good look at what tricks these people were trying to play. Heavenly Dragon Palace, Imperial Palace. In the center of the hall, there was a purple gold chair placed at the head of the table. That was obviously the seat of Jun Shiji, the Emperor of the North Underworld. On the lower left, there was a slightly smaller purple gold chair. Without a doubt, that was the seat of Prince Baiming, Jun Jiuqing. Generally speaking, only the Emperor had the right to sit on the purple gold chair. Jun Jiuqing was only the crown prince, but he was almost on the same level as his father. It was clear how high his status was in the North Underworld. Below it, there were 2 rows of seats on the left and right. Looking carefully, each side was divided into 2 sections. Apart from the North Underworld dynasty, there were 4 dynasties that came this time. Now, the seats on the left and right of the 4 sections were occupied. They were the Xian dynasty and the East Com dynasty that came one after another. Jun Shiji and Jun Jiuqing had not arrived yet. Apart from the 2 dynasties, there were only a few servants in the palace. The atmosphere was more relaxed. Brother Ning, have you heard of something new yesterday? The Xian dynasty's emperor, Gongsun Xiao, held a cup of wine and asked. Ning Yuan raised his eyes slightly. His expression did not change. Brother Gongsun, are you talking about the matter of the courtyard? Looks like Brother Ning has heard about it. Gongsun Xiao laughed. We went early yesterday. I didn't expect to miss such a wonderful show. What a pity. There's nothing to pity. It's just a place to stay. Ning Yuan did not seem to care about this matter. Gongsun Xiao sneered at the old fox in his heart. His acting skills were still the same as before, but he was not in the mood to care about this with Ning Yuan. Now, what he cared about most was the Tianling dynasty. Brother Ning, you're wrong. This place was arranged by the crown prince himself. How can he not see it? If Jun Jiuqing wanted, he could have let them stay in the same place. But he did not. Wasn't he deliberately looking for trouble? More importantly, he was looking for trouble with the Tianling dynasty. I wonder if Brother Ning knows anything about the Tianling dynasty? Ning Yuan paused. My Eastcom dynasty is very far away from the Tianling dynasty. Naturally, I don't know much. Gongsun Xiao smiled and stroked his beard. Forget about the others, but Brother Ning should have heard of the new Tianling emperor who is coming today, right? Some time ago, those things had caused a huge commotion. It was hard for them not to know. Brother Ning, aren't you curious about this person at all? Ning Yuan's lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, he heard an announcement. The Tianling dynasty's Emperor Yuanshi, Shanghai Yu, has arrived. The entire hall instantly fell silent. Everyone turned their heads and looked outside the door. A group of people was walking toward them. The person in front was a woman who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old. She was slender and tall, dressed in red. From afar, she looked like a red cloud floating over. As she approached, the hall was suddenly filled with gasps of astonishment. Countless people's eyes flashed with amazement. Beautiful. This woman was incomparably beautiful and exuded a noble aura. There was only one word to describe it: beautiful. She just stood there, and everything around her seemed to be overshadowed. Many people were secretly shocked. They didn't expect the rumored Shangguan Yu to be so beautiful. The people sitting in this hall were the most distinguished people of each dynasty. What kind of beauty had they not seen before? However, the moment they saw Chu Luiyue, many people's hearts skipped a beat, and their eyes were unconsciously attracted to her. Chu Luiyue was already used to such gazes. When she reached the middle, she stopped in her tracks and smiled. I'm late. I wonder what everyone was talking about just now. Can you tell me so that we can have a good time together? Digression. That's all for today. Friends in the Typhone District, please be careful. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 943. The woman's voice was clear, like pearls falling on a jade plate, echoing clearly in the main hall. The main hall instantly became even quieter. Wasn't she the one they were talking about just now? However, they couldn't say that out loud. After all, Shang Wanyu was now the emperor of a dynasty. Even if she was slightly inferior to these people, her status was definitely on par with them. As soon as she spoke, everyone in the main hall suddenly had the illusion that they had been caught talking behind someone's back. After a short silence, Ning Yuan took the lead to speak to Chu Luiyue. It's just a small matter. Don't mind it. Now that the Dark North Emperor and the Crown Prince haven't arrived yet, Emperor Yuanxi, please feel free to do as you please. Chu Luiyue's lips curved slightly, and there was a hint of a smile. Thank you. Today, all of you can be considered my seniors. If you don't mind, you could just call me by my name. Although she looked young, her behavior was generous. She had the majesty of an emperor, and she didn't lose the etiquette of a senior or a junior. Ning Yuan had a good impression of her. He nodded and introduced himself. Doning Dynasty, Ning Yuan. Chu Luiyue nodded and turned to look to the other side. May I ask who this senior is? Gongsun Xiao originally disdained the Tianling dynasty in his heart, but now that the other party had spoken so politely, he couldn't openly make things difficult for them. Xian Dynasty, Gongsun Xiao. I've heard a lot about you two seniors. It's an honor to meet you today. If there's anything I don't understand in the future, I hope you can give me some pointers. Chu Luiyue said some nice words with a smile, as if she really didn't hear what they had said in the main hall earlier. After that, Chu Luiyue led her people to the seats next to Ning Yuan and the others. Countless gazes followed her. Seeing her leisurely appearance, many people's expressions became a little strange. This Shang Wanyu doesn't seem to be the same as the rumors previously. He had thought that she was an arrogant and despotic little girl. But now, it seemed that she was not the case at all. There was nothing wrong with his words and actions. He was clearly very magnanimous and courteous. Gongsun Xiao and Ning Yuan looked at each other. When I heard the rumors yesterday, I thought that Shang Wanyu was deliberately provoking the Taiyu dynasty because she had the support of Prince Baiming. However, looking at her, I didn't think that she would do such a thing. Gongsun Xiao pondered for a moment, then laughed and asked, "What do you think? We only heard that you were coming yesterday. We wanted to pay you a visit first, but the distance between our residences was a bit far, and it was too late, so we didn't go because we didn't want to disturb you. I wonder, did you guys have a good rest yesterday?" He was asking about the matter of the courtyard. In other words, they were testing the relationship between Chu Luiyue and Prince Baiming. If there really was something wrong, then they would have to be more cautious in the future. Chu Luiyue smiled noncommittally. Thank you for your concern, Senior Gong's son. Like all of you, after we arrived in Lin City, everything was arranged by the Crown Prince himself. Of course, everything is fine. She did not answer Gong's son Zhao's question directly. Instead, she flattered Prince Baiming indifferently. This was his territory, so it was not wrong to praise him. Would anyone dare to refute her words? As expected, when Gongsun Xiao heard this, a trace of disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he did not say anything. Ning Yuan did not say anything. It seemed that he was really not interested in this. Taiyu Dynasty's Emperor Huairan Tan Taichun has arrived. Not long after, Tan Taichun and the others arrived one after another. Tan Taichun felt even more frustrated when he saw that the people from the other dynasties had arrived. He greeted them briefly and went to his seat. However, he could not sit still even after sitting down. Tan Taichun clearly felt that many people around him were looking at him. He did not need to look up to know what these people meant. They must have known about what happened yesterday. This made Tan Taichun feel even more embarrassed. He felt like he was sitting on pins and needles. However, they did not say anything, so he did not even have a chance to fight back. He could not help but feel even more aggrieved. Moreover, after staying in the main hall for a while, Tan Taichun noticed that Gongsun Xiao and Ning Yuan seemed to be more polite to Shang Wanyu. Perhaps it was because of what happened yesterday that they suspected that the Tianling dynasty had something to do with Prince Baiming. Tan Taichun secretly clenched his fists. I'll let her be proud for now. When I have the chance in the future, I'll expose her in public. I'll make her lose face. His Majesty has arrived. The Crown Prince has arrived. Two announcements rang out consecutively from outside the door. The noisy main hall instantly quieted down. Everyone looked at the door in unison. They saw a bright yellow figure walking toward them. It was a middle-aged man with a tall and sturdy figure. He was awe-inspiring without being angry, and his aura was strong. It was the Dark North Emperor, Jun Shiji. Half a step behind him was a young man. The man was wearing a bright blue brocade robe. The collar and cuffs of his robe were embroidered with a dragon pattern with golden thread. He had a jade belt around his waist and a golden crown on his head. He was as aloof as a tall mountain and as unrestrained as a misty mountain. A pair of sword-like eyebrows slanted to his temples. His nose was tall and straight, and his lips were slightly raised in a seductive arc. However, the thing that made people's hearts sway the most was his pair of unique eyes. He was born with a pair of red phoenix eyes that contained all the romantic affairs of the world. Although he was smiling, his eyes were as cold and indifferent as a 1,000-year-old lake. A faint red color could be seen in his eyes, like a faint blood red color. It was unforgettable. His eyes swept over the crowd. His eyes were relaxed, as if he had seen thousands of sails, but also as if he did not care about anything. When Chu Luiyue saw him, she was slightly stunned. She could not help but have a thought. This is Jun Jiuqing. One arrogant man. Yes, arrogant. Even though he didn't say or do anything, Chu Luiyue instinctively felt that he was an extremely arrogant man with just one look. As if sensing her gaze, Jun Jiuqing's eyes turned slightly, and he looked over as well. The two of them looked at each other. Chu Luiyue's heart trembled. This man was extremely powerful. Almost instinctively, her entire body instantly went on alert. Jun Jiuqing's lips suddenly curled up, and he smiled. When he smiled, the ice in his eyes seemed to have broken. He was innocent and pure. However, under the contrast of the blood-red color in his eyes, there was a hint of cruelty and fierceness that seemed to be unaware of itself. Chu Luiyue could feel that Jun Jiuqing did not have any ill intentions toward her. However, she did not know why the vigilance in her heart did not dissipate at all. Shang Guanyu. Jun Jiuqing suddenly opened his mouth. His voice was low, like the fragrance of wine that permeated the air, intoxicating people. Long time no see, he said with a smile. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 944. This voice successfully diverted everyone's attention to Chu Luiyue. Countless gazes instantly turned to Chu Luiyue. Even Jun Shiji, who had just walked in, couldn't help but look over with a trace of surprise in his eyes. There was a moment of dead silence. Chu Luiyue instantly tensed up and cursed Jun Jiuqing in her heart. Long time no see. Who have you not seen for a long time? Do I know you? How can you speak like that? However, she definitely couldn't say such words out loud. Chu Luiyue smiled slightly. She was very dignified and gracious, polite and distant. Thank you for your concern, Your Highness. I'm doing very well. Thinking that her father was still in the other party's hands, Chu Luiyue could only grit her teeth and play along with the other party's act. Jun Jiuqing raised his eyebrows slightly, as if he wasn't satisfied with her answer. Is that so? But I haven't been doing very well recently. When these words were said, the atmosphere became even more awkward. Many people's gazes went back and forth between Chu Luiyue and Jun Jiuqing as they secretly pondered. Why did it sound like the relationship between the two of them was quite unusual? Could it be that the previous rumors were true? That Chu Luiyue really had Jun Jiuqing as her backer? Chu Luiyue's eyes flashed slightly, and she sneered in her heart. Was this Jun Jiuqing crazy? She didn't even know him. What did it have to do with her whether he was doing well? If he was really not doing well, then it was probably because he had done too many bad things. So you're Shang Guanyu. Jun Shiji spoke amidst the awkward silence. He looked at Chu Luiyue with a gentle gaze and a trace of curiosity. The 9 ministers mentioned you before. This time, it was also he who insisted on inviting the Tianling dynasty along. I hope that your people can also show off their skills during the opening of ancient Phoenix Mountain. Chu Yue's eyelids twitched. Did Jun Jiuqing mention her to Jun Qiji? This seemed even stranger. She tugged at the corners of her mouth, revealing a perfect and polite smile. I hope I can count on your blessing. When the surrounding people heard this, they all revealed meaningful expressions. Everyone knew that Prince Baiming was decisive and ruthless. There weren't many who could receive such special treatment from him, right? Tan Taichun furrowed his brows. It was no wonder that the Tianling dynasty, which was originally not qualified, had also come to the ancient Phoenix Mountain this time. It turned out that there was really something fishy going on here. Looks like I'll have to see what the relationship between Chu Luiyue and Jun Jiuqing is before I can decide if I can make a move. Jun Qiji and Jun Jiuqing quickly took their seats, and the atmosphere in the hall gradually calmed down. However, from time to time, there were still some eyes that kept looking at Chu Luiyue. Obviously, Jun Jiuqing's few words just now had already made many guesses in everyone's hearts. Even the few people sitting behind Chu Luiyue were confused and vaguely felt that something was wrong. Elder Chun leaned closer and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, didn't you say that you don't know Prince Baiming?" But from the looks of it just now, it was clearly not him. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes. "Just wait and see." "Yes." Elder Chun corresponded and did not continue to ask. Elder Su Jin and the others looked at him inquiringly. Elder Chun shook his head silently, indicating that they should not be impatient. What she said before did not seem to be a lie. Moreover, for many years, the Tianling dynasty did not have much contact with the Baiming dynasty. Today's meeting was really a little strange. However, they believed that she was. "Baiming welcomes all of you who have come from afar. Let me propose a toast to all of you." Jun Qiji wanted to propose a toast, so everyone raised their wine glasses. The hall was bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone looked happy and harmonious, as if the open and covert struggles from before had all disappeared. Jun Jiuqing leaned lazily on his chair, one hand supporting his cheek, and his eyes half raised, as if he was not very interested in this. The wine glass in front of him was still full. However, no one dared to persuade him to drink. Even Jun Qiji did not say anything. So how could anyone else have a say? However, they had heard some things about Jun Jiuqing and knew that he was not easy to serve, so they consciously avoided provoking him. Mu Hongyu leaned closer to Jian Fengqi and whispered, "That Prince Baiming seems to be very powerful." Before Jian Fengqi noticed, Mu Hongyu suddenly moved closer, and the woman's warm and sweet scent instantly filled the air. He was slightly stunned and looked over, only to find that Mu Hongyu was talking to him with her side profile, but her gaze was still on Jun Jiuqing, as if she was full of curiosity. Because she was not looking over, she did not realize that she had almost bumped into Jian Fengqi's arms. There was only an inch of distance between the two of them. Jian Fengqi could even see the soft hair on her face. His heart suddenly beat faster, and even his ears and cheeks seemed to be a little hot. He knew that he should retreat, but for some reason, his body seemed to be fixed, and he could not move. His eardrums were vibrating, and it felt as if something was hammering on his heart. Don't you think so?" Mu Hongyu did not hear his answer, so she turned her head. Their cheeks brushed against each other, and their breaths were close. Jian Fengqi's heart stopped for a moment. However, Mu Hongyu did not seem to notice anything. She consciously stepped back and looked at him strangely. "What's wrong with you?" Jian Fengqi came back to his senses and looked away. "Nothing. He's Prince Baiming. Isn't it normal for him to be powerful?" Mu Hongyu rested her chin on one hand and tapped it. "You're right, but it still feels weird. He seems to know Lu Yu." Out of all the people she had met, Jian Fengqi was ranked first in terms of playfulness and willfulness. However, this Jun Jiuqing seemed to be even more so. However, the two of them were not the same. Jun Jiuqing seemed to be a little evil. Jian Fengqi saw that she was still thinking about Jun Jiuqing. His brows furrowed slightly, and he felt an inexplicable discomfort in his heart. If they were really friends, then what happened yesterday wouldn't have happened. He opened his bone fan and dissipated the heat on his face. Mu Hongyu nodded in agreement. That's true. After exchanging pleasantries for a while, Jun Jiuqing finally spoke. Imperial Father, since everyone is here, let's cut to the chase. Jun Qiji was not angry at being interrupted. He stroked his beard. All right, I'll leave it to you to explain to everyone what's going to happen next. The hall had already quieted down. Hearing this, everyone looked at Jun Jiuqing. Jun Jiuqing looked around, and his gaze lingered on the woman in red for a moment. Then, he straightened up with a smile on his face. I believe that all of you are already aware of the reason why I've invited all of you here. When ancient Phoenix Mountain opens, it will be difficult for my Biming family to deal with it alone. Moreover, this is a rare opportunity for cultivators. Therefore, this time, we've decided that the people of the 5 great empires will enter ancient Phoenix Mountain together. Digression, there's something going on at home that may take some time to deal with. Continue reading at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 945. Hearing him mention the ancient Phoenix Mountain, everyone's spirits were lifted. Wasn't this the reason they had come this time? From this evening onwards, the barrier outside the ancient Phoenix Mountain will be affected by the force of heaven and earth, and the pressure will gradually fade. After a day and a night, the pressure will be reduced to the lowest point, and at that time, it will be the best time to enter. Jun Jiuqing's words were concise and comprehensive. There is only one entrance to the ancient Phoenix Mountain, and, at the same time, it is also the exit. In other words, you have to exit from where you entered. The reason is that this opening was created through the combined efforts of countless ancestors over 1,000 years. This time, we took advantage of the right time, place, and people to open it. Everyone nodded, expressing their understanding. After all, this was a barrier left behind by a powerhouse who had stepped into the deity realm. Normal cultivators naturally couldn't contend against it. Only by taking advantage of this opportunity and working together would they have a chance. It was no wonder that they were willing to invite people from other dynasties to share in such a great opportunity. This was really the only way. 1,000 years ago, the Taizu of the Northern Underworld dynasty cultivated in the ancient Phoenix Mountain. At the peak of the 9th level, he successfully broke through and advanced to the next level. Since then, this ancient Phoenix Mountain has been left behind. In these 1,000 years, the ancient Phoenix Mountain has been sealed and has never been opened. No one has entered. In the long years, the force within the ancient Phoenix Mountain has accumulated and nurtured countless precious heavenly treasures. When the power within the ancient Phoenix Mountain has reached its peak, it will choose to open automatically and release the energy within. Then, it will enter the next cycle. And this process is 3 essences as one. At that time, the accumulated energy within the ancient Phoenix Mountain will surge out like a tidal wave. All the cultivators within will be able to use this opportunity to raise their cultivation. Those with great talent and strength may be able to break through consecutively. With every word Jun Jiuqing said, the expressions of the people sitting below became more and more excited. In this world, the strong were respected. Who didn't want to become stronger? Such an opportunity. Some people wouldn't encounter even in several lifetimes. Moreover, the ancient Phoenix Mountain was worthy of being called a divine mountain. Who knew if they would find a method and power to break through the shackles of the peak of the 9th level? As long as he could get in, he would have profited. The Dark North Dynasty is generous enough to invite us to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain together. Ning Yuan has nothing to thank you for. I can only ask the elders to do their best to assist us. Ning Yuan cupped his hands. As soon as he spoke, the others naturally expressed their gratitude one after another. Even though they knew that the Dark North Empire had invited them mainly for their own sake, it was undoubtedly a good thing for them. Why would they be so calculative? Jun Jiuqing looked around and seemed to be quite satisfied with everyone's reaction. The corners of his mouth curled up into an evil smile. Everyone, There's no need to be so courteous. When the time comes, the ancient Phoenix Mountain will be opened by relying on everyone. As for how much of the heavenly fate one could obtain after entering, that would depend on one's own ability. Jun Jiuqing leaned back with a faint smile on his face. How about this? There's something I forgot to mention just now. When the ancient Phoenix Mountain opened, only 5 people could enter every 4 hours. In other words, everyone will be divided into 4 batches. Now, why don't we first decide on the order of entering the ancient Phoenix Mountain? As soon as he finished speaking, the main hall instantly quietened down. Many people looked at each other. Previously, they thought that as long as the ancient Phoenix Mountain was opened, everyone could enter together. Who would have thought that there would be an order? Moreover, the interval was not short. It was a full 4 hours. This might not sound like much, but one had to know that time was extremely precious in the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The more time one could spend inside, the higher the possibility of increasing one's strength or finding opportunities. Who would be willing to fall behind others? Therefore, the order became extremely important. The Dark North Empire would definitely be the first to enter. The remaining 4 clans would have to follow their own order. For a moment, no one spoke. Chu Luiwei lowered his eyes and quietly looked at the wine cup in front of him. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. Jun Jiuqing was indeed someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. He was the noble Prince Biming. Logically speaking, it was not a problem for him to directly decide on the order. But he would not. He wanted the 4 clans to come to an agreement. On the surface, it looked like he wanted to be fair and impartial. In reality, he wanted to stir up trouble among these clans. Before they even entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain, there were already undercurrents surging. With such a commotion, it was inevitable that there would be some friction and disputes among the clans. This directly weakened the possibility of them joining forces. The Dark North Empire only needed to stay out of it and watch everything with a smile. Everyone present was smart. They all knew that the bird that stuck out would be shot. No one wanted to offend others and become a target. I have a suggestion. Tan Taichun suddenly spoke. Hearing this, everyone turned to look at him. Chu Luiwei looked up and saw Tan Taichun looking straight at her. Her heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, a strong premonition surged in her heart. As expected, she then heard Tan Taichun say, "The Tianling dynasty came from afar. It must be tough for them. Why don't we let them go first? What do you all think?" As soon as he finished speaking, the main hall became even quieter, except for the host, the Dark North Empire, who didn't come from afar. Tan Taichun deliberately said this to emphasize that the Tianling dynasty was the only dynasty that didn't neighbor the Dark North Empire. He implied that they didn't have the right to come here. But not only did they come, but they also stayed in the best courtyard. This more or less made the others feel unbalanced. Didn't they say that they had something to do with Prince Biming? Didn't they say that they had some background? If that was the case, then they might as well go first. Let everyone see if they had the ability and whether they were worthy. In the silence, Chu Luiwei chuckled and said, "I didn't expect Senior Tantai to take such good care of me. Logically speaking, I'm the lowest in seniority here. I should be last. But since Senior Tantai said so, if I refuse, wouldn't it be a disgrace to you?" Tan Taichun sneered in his heart, but didn't show it on his face. He said calmly, "You're still young and have just been promoted. It must be hard for you to bring them to the Dark North Empire. Let's make way for them. It's no big deal." Chu Luiwei smiled and nodded as if she didn't hear the sarcasm in Tan Tai's words. "Since you said so, then, I'll do as you say, but I don't know what the other seniors think." She looked at Ning Yuan and the others as she spoke. Gong Sun Xiao originally wanted to fight for the position, but he didn't expect that Tan Taichun would push Chu Luiwei and the others to the front. Moreover, he had already spoken to such an extent. If they refused, they would appear to be very petty. Gong Sun Xiao paused and said hesitantly, "They're just young girls. They're all young children. Wouldn't it be too dangerous for them to take the lead like this?" Tan Taichun laughed. "You don't have to worry about this. You don't know that when Shangguan Yu arrived at the border of the Dark North Empire, she had already memorized all the level 9 Shin formations that built the barrier. Once you enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain, you'll be invincible as long as you use it a little. Digression. I was busy outside today. When I got home, I fainted and fell asleep. My mind was in a daze. The rest of the update is about 9:30. Sorry. The typhoon is so strong. Everyone, pay attention to your safety. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 946. Chu Luiwei shook her head. The emperors of the various empires will be waiting outside, and I am no exception. There were only a total of 5 people who could enter. She had brought 5 people with her from the beginning, which was just right. With Jian Fengqi and little Zhou, there shouldn't be any problems. I will wait for you outside. Seeing that Chu Luiwei had made up her mind, Mu Hongyu knew that it was useless to persuade her, but she still felt a little regretful. But this is a rare opportunity. If she missed it, wouldn't it be a pity? Chu Luiwei's eyes curved. Don't worry, I have my own plans. Hearing her words, Mu Hongyu could only nod her head. Elders, please take your positions. Following an elder's command, the experts of the various empires moved out and stood in their positions according to the plan they had agreed on earlier. In front of this huge, colorful barrier, the experts each took a corner, forming a huge pentagon. On the 5 points of the pentagon, the 5 powerhouses from each dynasty formed a small pentagon. Among these people, the weakest was a peak rank 8 expert. The strongest was the elder who had spoken just now, the Dark North Empire's great elder. The peak rank 9 expert, Hua Qian. It was said that he was only 1 step away from a higher realm, and he was undoubtedly a top expert. Many people secretly guessed that he would become the 2nd Dark North Empire expert to enter the God Realm. Naturally, the opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain would be led by him. Rise! At Hua Qian's command, everyone moved together. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, forces of various colors flew out and intertwined in midair. Then, they gathered in the middle of the pentagon and formed a ball. As time passed, the ball of light gradually grew bigger. Below, the young geniuses of the various empires had already taken their positions and were prepared to enter according to the order. Standing at the front was the Dark North Empire that intended to be the first to enter. Jun Jiuqing was among them. Standing beside him were 3 young men and a woman. These people looked to be in their 20s, but the aura around them was not to be underestimated. At this moment, the few of them were gathered together and seemed to be discussing some arrangements after entering. Jun Jiuqing listened lazily, as if he didn't care at all. After listening for a while, he felt a little bored, so he turned to look at the Tianling dynasty. Then, he raised his eyebrows slightly. This is Jinlingzi. Every pearl can sense each other. After you enter, you can use this to contact each other. Chu Luiwei took out a golden bracelet from his interspatial ring and tore it open with a little force. Then, he gave the beads on the bracelet to Jian Fengqi and the others. As for herself, she kept the biggest one, which was also the only one with patterns carved on it. If you encounter danger, you can crush them. Each of them contains an 8th level Xian formation that can help you block one attack. Hearing this, the few of them revealed a shocked expression. They did not expect that this round and smooth golden bead would actually have such power. Jian Fengqi weighed it in his hand and glanced at Chu Luiwei. If I remember correctly, this Jinlingzi bracelet was broken back then, right? Chu Luiwei nodded and said casually, yes, that's right. That's why I fixed it again. Jian Fengqi was speechless. Forget I asked. How could I forget that this is a freak? Even if she had started all over again and didn't have the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, her talent was still unbelievably high. He thought that with this opportunity, he could still turn the tables. Now, it seemed like it would be quite difficult. Indeed, comparing oneself to others would only make one angry. Once the 8th level Xian formation is activated, its power will disappear. If you encounter danger again, the only way is to crush it quickly. Once this Jinlingzi is crushed, the others who have Jinlingzi will receive the news immediately, including me. Moreover, after this Jinlingzi is crushed, it will emit a special smell that will stay on the person's body for 3 days. This way, the others can quickly find the person who is asking for help. Of course, the prerequisite is that the person asking for help must also ensure their own safety during this period. Wu Ming glanced at the colorful barrier and asked in a low voice, "Your Majesty, the most important thing in this opening of the ancient Phoenix Mountain is the 3 essences as one. Everyone's focus should be on that. Even if there is competition between them, they won't go too far, right? After all, the emperors of the various dynasties are waiting outside. If there are really heavy casualties, how will they explain it after they come out?" "Stupid." Yuan Jinghong nudged him with her elbow and raised her chin. "Wu Ming, you are so obsessed with cultivation that your brain isn't working. Do you really think that these people are so kind that they will let us snatch the benefits? It is because this 3 essences as one is too powerful and too tempting that it is the most dangerous. Look, who here isn't ready and eager to give a try? If we don't make more preparations, we won't even know how we died." Wu Ming followed his gaze and found that it was indeed so. The young geniuses of the other dynasties seemed to have gathered together to discuss something. Most of them had solemn expressions, and the atmosphere was tense with a hint of danger. If that's the case, I was too naive. Wu Ming was a little embarrassed, but he still clenched his fists. "Don't worry, Your Highness. We will do our best." No matter what, they couldn't let His Highness lose face. Chu Luiwei smiled slightly and didn't care much about this. She only looked at the few of them and said seriously, "Those are secondary. Safety first. Yes. It's a pity that Shang Guanyu doesn't intend to go in." Tantai Ruoli had been paying attention to the situation at the Tianling dynasty's side from afar. When she saw Chu Luiwei patiently explaining something to the other 5 people, she couldn't help but feel disappointed. She had wanted to use this opportunity to teach her a lesson. She could flaunt her power outside because she was the Empress, but inside the ancient Phoenix Mountain, it would be a real competition of strength. She probably knows that she can't beat us, so she's purposely hiding? Yuzefeng said disdainfully. "But don't worry, Ruoli. If we can't take care of her, we'll let the rest of them suffer a little. It'll be considered as payback." Tantai Ruoli snorted lightly. Of course, out of all the candidates from the Tianling dynasty, those from the Tianling dynasty were the weakest in terms of overall ability. They could easily take care of them. The most powerful one among them seems to be Jianfeng Qi, but I heard that he's a celestial physician. His combat strength should be average. As for the others, it was needless to say. Yuzefeng looked at Tantai Ruoli eagerly. "Ruoli, I'll avenge you when the time comes." Tantai Ruoli nodded. "We have to let Shang Guanyu know who they can offend and who they can't." Just when everyone was ready, the last trace of the setting sun disappeared into the Black Mountain Range. Elder Hua, Qian gave the order. Ancient Phoenix Mountain, open. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 9:47. Chu Yoyue's voice was cold and dignified. Every word she said echoed clearly in the hall. It was like a loud slap on Tantai Ruoli's face. Tantai Ruoli's face instantly turned red. She had never been humiliated like this in front of so many people. "Shang Guanyu, I have reminded you before that my reign name is Yuan Shi." "Why? Princess Tantai, have you forgotten it so quickly?" Chu Liwei interrupted Tantai Ruoli coldly. Her dignified manner was even stronger. She was born noble and had been in a high position all year round. Now that she had ascended the throne, the noble aura in her bones was even stronger. At this moment, she no longer restrained her aura. Her aura instantly formed an invisible mountain and pressed down on Tantai Ruoli's shoulders. Tantai Ruoli felt her shoulders sink and her face turn pale. "How dare you?" Tan Taichun saw that his precious daughter was being bullied. Anger rose from his heart. He gathered the force in his palm and slapped it out. The orange force turned into a huge palm print and went straight for Chu Luiyue. A strong wind suddenly blew in the hall. Chu Yoyue's black hair swayed and the corners of her clothes fluttered. She fixed her eyes on the palm print that was flying towards her and sat firmly in her seat. It seemed that she had no intention of fighting back. Moreover, there was no surprise or nervousness on her face. Elder Chun Ku's aura turned cold, and he was about to make a move. Suddenly, a white light blade flew across the sky. Chi! The sound of something breaking rang out, and the white blade of light actually flew out from the huge orange palm print. Bang! The palm print collapsed, and the force contained in it began to spread wildly in all directions. However, almost at the same time, a transparent enchantment appeared quickly and enveloped it completely. In the blink of an eye, the vigorous and violent force quickly dissipated. The hall regained its peace. Everything happened too quickly. The crowd did not even have time to see what had happened. It was already over. When all the fluctuations subsided, many people looked at the white light blade in a daze. They realized that it was a silver chopstick. Chi! That thing once again transformed into a streak of light and quickly flew back. A slightly hoarse voice rang out lazily. Tan Tai-chun, who gave you the guts to behave so atrociously here? Tan Tai-chun was shocked. He looked up and saw that Jun Jiuqing had sat up straight and was holding the silver chopstick in his hand. It was Jun Jiuqing who did it. Realizing this, Tan Tai-chun was both shocked and scared. He was shocked because he did not expect Jun Jiuqing to be so direct and not give him any face. What he was afraid of was that from that strike, Jun Jiuqing's strength was clearly above his. If Jun Jiuqing had exerted more strength just now, he was afraid that, for a moment, Tan Tai-chun's face turned red and white at the same time. At this moment, he could not tell if Jun Jiuqing had done it to protect the dignity of the Baiming Kingdom or to help Shang Guanyu. If it was the former, he could just bow his head and admit his mistake. But if it was the latter, did it not mean that he had offended Jun Jiuqing? Your Highness, please forgive me. Just now I saw my daughter being bullied. In a moment of impulse, I forgot that we were still in the main hall. Tan Tai-chun forced himself to speak, trying to defend himself. I don't care who bullied your daughter, but you can't do it here. Jun Jiuqing could not be bothered to listen to him and directly stopped him. Tan Tai-chun was extremely aggrieved. If he had known, he would not have made a move just now. Although Shang Guanyu had also exerted pressure, he did it quietly and did not attract the attention of others. His palm strike just now had directly given his opponent a weakness that could be used against him. Tantai Rooli was also stunned by the scene in front of her. She had always been doted on, and her words had always been the law in the Taiyu dynasty. She had long been spoiled. Therefore, even when she came here, she could not restrain herself. It was only when she saw her father's move being easily defeated by Jun Jiuqing that she realized that the Baiming Kingdom did indeed have the right to be arrogant. Chu Yoyue's lips curled into a smile. It seems like Senior Tanai and everyone from the Taiyu dynasty are a little angry. Why don't we wait until later to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain? I'm afraid it's not very appropriate to go in with such anger and fury. Tan Tai-chun's heart tightened when he heard that. This Shang Guanyu is really cunning. Taking advantage of my words to take the first place, he actually wants Taiyu to be the last place? No, that makes sense. Ning Yuan, who had been watching from the sidelines, suddenly spoke in agreement. In that case, our East Com will be the third place. On the other side, Gongsun Zhao's mind raced when he saw this. Although he also wanted to be at the front, the situation was complicated now. It was better to not cause trouble. He only pondered for a moment before agreeing to it. Brother Ning, since you are following the Tianling, we will follow behind. Is that okay? Apart from the Taiyu dynasty, everyone else was fine with it. Tan Tai-chun was so aggrieved that his lungs were about to explode. It would have been fine if only Shang Guanyu said this, but Ning Yuan and Gongsun Zhao, who followed closely behind, nodded in agreement. What else could he say? One had to know that among the dynasties present, Taiyu was only slightly stronger than the Tianling dynasty. How could he openly oppose the others? Chu Liuwe looked up slightly and glanced at Tan Tai-chun. Senior Tantai, what do you think? Tan Tai-chun swallowed the surging blood in his throat. If that's the case, then that's great. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 948. Chu Yoyue's eyes curved into crescents. That's good. Everyone is happy. Tan Taichun felt as if his heart had been hammered again. His chest felt suffocated. Everyone is happy. Who wants to be happy with you? He originally wanted to use this opportunity to embarrass Shangguan Yu in front of everyone, but he didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn. Instead, he put himself in danger. They were the last to enter, and there was a gap of 16 hours between them and the first to enter. It was almost a day's time. By the time they entered, all the good things might have been taken away by the people in front of them. What was left for them was probably just some leftovers. But now, other than them, everyone else had expressed their agreement. What could they do? Tan Taichun took a deep breath and suppressed the anger and resentment in his heart with great difficulty. "Father, are you all right?" Tantai Raoli asked worriedly. Tan Taichun shook his head. He wasn't injured, but he had completely lost his face. If it wasn't for waiting for the opening of ancient Phoenix Mountain, he definitely wouldn't continue to stay here. "It's all my fault. If I hadn't been so impulsive, this wouldn't have happened." Tantai Ruoli's eyes were red, and she seemed to be blaming herself. Yu Zifeng, who was sitting beside her, felt his heart ache. He couldn't help but persuade her gently. "Ruoli, how can this be your fault? You didn't do anything wrong." The wrong thing is that name rolled in his throat. Thinking of the situation just now, Yu Zifeng swallowed those few words back. "In short, this matter can't be blamed on you. Don't blame yourself too much." Tan Taichun sighed and patted her arm lightly. "Zifeng is right. We have already formed a grudge with them. Even if you didn't say anything today, they wouldn't have treated us well." That Shangguan Yu was so arrogant and conceited. Tantai Ruoli choked for a moment. She quickly glanced at the opposite side, then quickly retracted her gaze and bit her lip. "Father, that Shangguan Yu didn't dare to show it in front of everyone, which means that what she said is definitely false. She didn't even remember that level 9 Xian formation." Her voice was very low. At this time, the hall had regained its liveliness, so not many people heard her words. Shangguan Yu used his identity as an excuse to get angry. He must be trying to cover up the truth. Tan Taichun closed his eyes. "Don't worry, Imperial Father will make you pay for this." The order to enter the ancient Phoenix Mountain had already been decided. Next, everyone decided on some specific details. It was mainly about how the experts of the various grand empires should work together to open the enchantment of the ancient Phoenix Mountain, as well as some things to pay attention to after entering. After they finished discussing, everyone set off for the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The ancient Phoenix Mountain was located behind Linzhou City. In other words, the huge Linzhou City was built right next to the ancient Phoenix Mountain. The mountain range rose and fell continuously. It was majestic and magnificent, and it could be said to be a natural defensive barrier. By the time they arrived at the foot of the ancient Phoenix Mountain, it was already close to evening. The setting sun slowly set. The afterglow of the sun shone, outlining the continuous lines of the ancient Phoenix Mountain. As the bright red sun was slowly swallowed by the black mountain range, the sky gradually darkened. The experts of the 5 grand empires were all ready. Chu Luiyue looked up. A brilliant enchantment enveloped the huge ancient Phoenix Mountain. It was majestic and awe-inspiring. She held her breath. This was the pressure of an expert who had stepped into the legendary realm. Mu Hongyu asked in a low voice, "Luyu, are you really not going in with us?" Digression, today's update is unstable, so I'll make up for it with a piece of supper good night, everyone. Mobile users, please browse and read. Chapter 949. His voice was full of energy. Everyone in the main hall heard it clearly. After a momentary daze, the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard. What did Tantai Chun say? Shangguan Yu had already memorized all the level 9 profound formations at the border of the Dark North Kingdom. How could this be possible? Oh my god, did I hear it wrong? Shangguan Level 9 Profound Formations. Must be a joke, right? I heard that Shangguan had amazing talent in the past. She was indeed a Level 8 Mystic Master. The few Level 9 Profound Formations at the border of the Dark North Kingdom were jointly created by several Level 9 Mystic Masters of the Dark North Kingdom. They are extremely complicated, not to mention Shangguan. Even if it was other Level 9 Mystic Masters, they would need to spend a month or so to completely memorize it. How could she have done it? Everyone was talking about it. Gong Sun Xiao also felt that it was extremely absurd. He immediately laughed. Brother Tantai, what are you talking about? Tantai Chen's expression was as usual. Brother Gong Sun, you and I have known each other for many years. You should know me well enough. Would I joke about this kind of thing? Shangguan said it herself at that time. The smile on Gong Sun Zhao's face suddenly froze. He looked at Chu Luiwei in disbelief. Tantai Chan poured himself a glass of wine and said in a seemingly unintentional manner, "At that time, we arrived at the border almost at the same time as the people of the Tianling dynasty. As soon as we got out of the teleportation formation, we heard them talking about this." As he spoke, he looked up at Chu Luiwei. Although there was a smile on his face, his eyes were full of coldness. If I remember correctly, Shangguan at that time, you seem to have said that it would take 15 minutes? Since she dared to ask such a question to his face, it was most likely true. The noisy discussion disappeared in an instant. Countless pairs of eyes were fixed on Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei tilted her head and smiled honestly. Yes, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You said it yourself. Who in this world could do such a thing? And she actually admitted it so honestly? Did she think that by boasting about everything, she could make herself look more powerful? Those present were all the top experts and geniuses of the various dynasties, but none of them dared to say such a thing in public. Looking at her face, it seemed that she didn't care. Did she even know what she was talking about? Chu Yu's answer was so frank that everyone couldn't react for a moment. Even Tantai Chun, who wanted to see her make a fool of herself in public, had a stunned expression on his face. He originally thought that Chu Luiwei would deny it, but who knew? It seems that Emperor Yuan she has a well-thought-out plan. He has already comprehended all the 9th grade profound formations and memorized them by heart. Tantai Ruoli, who was sitting at the back, finally couldn't help but speak up with a mocking expression. When she said Emperor Yuan she deliberately emphasized the word Emperor Yuan Shi. Chu Luiwei glanced at her indifferently with a faint smile. This empress merely memorized all the profound formations. He didn't know it by heart, and he didn't dare to say that he had completely comprehended it. Not to mention other things, it is definitely not something that could be comprehended in a day or two to comprehend such a top-notch profound formation. However, Tantai Grand Princess is not a mystic teacher, so it's normal that you don't understand these things. As Chu Luiwei spoke, she leisurely took a sip of wine. Tantai Ruoli choked. She was mocking her for not being a mystic teacher. Was she so great just because she was a 3rd cultivator? The current Shangguan was no longer at the primordial heavenly meridians, and her strength seemed to be only at the 6th rank. Even if she could continue her cultivation as a mystic teacher and a heavenly doctor, her realm and strength were not enough. So what was there to be arrogant about? Did she really think that she was still that rare genius from before? This princess is indeed not a mystic teacher, and I'm not clear about the intricacies of this place. I'm not as good as Emperor Yuanxi, but with just a few glances, I was able to memorize the 9th level mystic formation. With this kind of talent, I'm afraid there's no one who can match up to me in all the empires, right? Tantai Ruoli sneered in a rather eccentric manner. Ugh. Chu Luiwei seemed to have a headache as she rubbed her temples. Sometimes, people who are too outstanding will indeed be a little troublesome. Sigh, actually sometimes this empress is quite envious of people like Tantai Grand Princess. She doesn't have as many troubles as this empress. Tantai Ruoli, everyone, they had seen people who could brag, but they had never seen one who could brag like this. Tantai Ruoli was so angry that she laughed. So you're saying that you've really memorized all of those ninth-grade profound formations? Chu Luiwei blinked her eyes. Why can't I? As she spoke, she turned her head and looked at Jun Shiji, who was sitting in the seat of honor. Your Majesty, this Empress didn't take too many glances at that grade 9 profound formation at your border. You won't mind, right? What else could Jun Shiji say? That was a profound formation that was specially used to construct boundaries. Anyone who entered or exited the dark north border would see it. How could they not let others see it? Not to mention taking a few glances. Even if someone set up camp outside and looked at it for a year or so, there was no need for them to stop them. Of course not. Jun Shiji coughed and turned his gaze to look at Jun Jiuqing, who was beside him. Previously, Jun Jiuqing had only mentioned this Shangguan Yu once or twice. From their conversation, he seemed to admire this woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invited Tianling dynasty this time. But he didn't say that this woman was actually so arrogant. Jun Shiji originally had a good first impression of her, but now it was somewhat discounted. But from the corner of his eyes, he saw Jun Jiuqing leaning on his chair and watching the few people arguing below. The corners of his lips curled up slightly, as though he found it rather interesting. The demonic aura around him seemed to have faded quite a bit. Jun Shiji muttered to himself. Jun Jiuqing really seemed to treat this Shangguan Yu differently. On the other side, after getting Jun Shiji's reply, Chu Yue's eyes curved and she looked at Tantai Ruoli. Eldest Princess Tantai should have heard His Majesty's words. Do you have any more questions? Tantai Ruoli was so rebuked that she couldn't say a word. There seemed to be a ball of fire burning wildly in her chest. As though he sensed her abnormality, Tantai Chun turned back to look at her with a warning in his eyes. Don't forget where you are. You must not be willful and cause trouble. Tantai Ruoli clenched her fists in her sleeves so hard that her knuckles turned white. It took her a lot of effort to restrain the anger in her heart. She forced the corners of her mouth to reveal a rather ferocious smile. No, actually, I'm just a little curious. After all, this kind of thing is indeed not something that everyone can do. I wonder if Emperor Yuanxi can demonstrate it in front of everyone so that we can be convinced? As long as she, Shangguan Yu, dared to nod, this hypocritical mask would immediately be torn off. Tantai Ruoli's eyes were fixed on her, and the others were also waiting in silence. They seemed to be equally curious. Shangguan Yu, was she really as powerful as she said? Chu Luiwei smiled slowly and put down the cup in her hand with a bang. She looked up slightly, and her eyes were cold. Everything I said is true. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. If you want me to demonstrate it in front of everyone and prove it, do you think you're worthy? Mobile users, please browse and read. For a better reading experience, please visit the website of self-love. Maybe he can take this opportunity to break through. That would be a great thing. Jun Shiji gently nodded. I hope so. As he spoke, he turned to look at Chu Luiwei. Like most people, he thought that Chu Luiwei would go in, but who would have thought? Under the night sky, the light from the lantern shone on her face. She was calm. She was not as nervous and uneasy as the others. It was as if she had nothing to do with it. Jun Shiji's heart skipped a beat. Such patience and mental state was not something that an ordinary person could possess. At this moment, Elder Hua Qian shouted again. Again! Boom! Following the loud noise, the colorful barrier inside the Pentagon opened once again. Let's go. Jian Fengqi's gaze was firm as he turned around and left. Mu Hongyu and the rest also followed behind. Chang Wanzhou turned around and looked at Chu Luiwei. The youth's unbelievably beautiful face was still indifferent. Only his eyes seemed to be gradually stirring. Chu Luiwei nodded slightly. Chang Wanzhou's rose-like lips were tightly pursed. She tiptoed and followed the others. The figures of the few people also disappeared within the barrier. Seeing that the few of them had gone in, Chu Luiwei slowly exhaled and sat down on the prepared chair. He seemed to have made up his mind to wait outside peacefully. What a pity! Gongsun Xiao finally could not help but speak up when he saw this scene. Shang Guanyu, how could you give up on such a good opportunity to cultivate? Even if you're the emperor, no one said that you can't go in. I heard that you're extremely talented. It's really a pity. Chu Luiwei smiled. Thank you for your concern, Elder Gongsun. This is a rare opportunity. I've already treasured it greatly by bringing them here. I don't dare to ask for anything else. Gongsun Xiao could not help but feel even more puzzled when he heard her words. Could it be that she never thought of going in from the start? They were not allowed to go in because they were too old and did not meet the requirements. Furthermore, they were already so old. It would be too embarrassing to compete with young children. But Shang Wanyu, she's only in her teens, right? Even if it was based on her previous age, she should only be 21 or 22 years old. Could it be that without the Tianjing Yuan Meridian, she also lost her drive? No matter how others guessed, Chu Luiwei remained unmoved. He sat on his seat and waited quietly. After that, no one asked him such questions again. Chu Luiwei finally had some peace and quiet. She wanted to take advantage of this time to cultivate, but when she thought about how she had to pay attention to the ancient Phoenix Mountain and the surrounding situation, she did not choose to cultivate with her essence force. Instead, she chose to redraw the level 9 Xian formation in her mind. It was not easy for her to draw it and connect it. Now, she had to consolidate it and study it more. Being able to see it was one thing, but being able to redraw it was another. And comprehending it required a lot of energy and spirit. Fortunately, she had done some research on level 9 Xian formations before, so it was not as difficult as she had expected. As time passed, the Xian formation in her mind became clearer. Third batch, enter. Following Elder Hua Qian's order, the 5 people from the East Com dynasty finally entered. Fourth batch, enter. This time, it was the Xian dynasty. At this moment, the sky was already turning white. Only the people from Taiyu dynasty were left. They were still waiting. After a night of nervous torture, many people looked much more haggard. Tantai Rooli rubbed his eyes. His eyes, which were originally black and white, were now covered with blood vessels. The others weren't any better either, although no one stopped them from resting and sleeping. Who could sleep in such a place at such a time? Tantai Rooli glanced at Chu Luiwei from the corner of his eye, but he still looked energetic. She clearly did not sleep the whole night. Why was there such a big difference? At this moment, Tantai Rooli did not know that Chu Luiwei had been repeatedly drawing those level 9 Xian formations the whole night. His spirit was comforted and nourished by the high-level Xian formations. Naturally, he felt comfortable all over. Fifth batch, enter. Finally, they heard this sound. Tantai Rooli and the others were invigorated. Before they could say anything, they entered one after another excitedly. Immediately, the colorful barrier closed again. At this moment, the Jinlingzi on Chu Luiwei's wrist suddenly trembled. She lowered her eyes to take a look, and her gaze turned sharp. Wu Ming's Jinlingzi had been crushed. Digression, read together at 6 p.m. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 9, 51. Roughly calculating, the time they had spent in the ancient Phoenix Mountain had only been 12 hours. Wu Ming had crushed the Jinlingzi. He must have activated the level 8 Xian formation and reached a point of no return. What had he encountered in this short period of time? Also, where were the others? Chu Luiwei calmly retracted her gaze. She moved her wrist slightly and covered the Jinlingzi. Her mind was active. Fortunately, because she had been waiting quietly, not many people were paying attention to her. This subtle change was not noticed by anyone. As the last group of people from the Taiyu dynasty entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain, the place quieted down again. According to the previous estimate, the ancient Phoenix Mountain would be open for about 15 days. Half a month later, the 3 elements as one would erupt with the power accumulated for 1,000 years. Everything on the ancient Phoenix Mountain would be restored to balance and automatically enter the next cycle. In other words, they would have to wait outside for half a month. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility of people coming out early because they could not withstand the pressure or because they were injured. Everything depended on one's own ability. Chu Luiwei glanced at the colorful barrier that had returned to normal. Her expression was slightly restrained. It seemed that she had to hurry up. At the same time, in the Lin City Palace, everything was normal. Because Jun Shiji and Jun Jiuqing had gone to the ancient Phoenix Mountain, and the sky was just beginning to brighten, the palace was very quiet. East Palace. A patrol team had just finished handing over to another team. Although the Crown Prince is not in the palace these few days, we still can't let down our guard. We have to keep a close watch and not let anyone in, understand? The leader of the men shouted in a deep voice. Yes, yes. Don't worry. We all know this. How can we not be attentive when doing things here? The few soldiers who took over seemed to be a little afraid of this man. They all responded respectfully. It's good that you know. Seeing that they were so obedient, the man nodded in satisfaction and raised his chin at the soldiers behind him. Let's go. With that, the group of people quickly left. Only after their figures had completely disappeared did the men who were taking over the shift let out a sigh of relief. Big Brother Qian, that man is so powerful. Everyone is patrolling, but why does it seem like he is taller than everyone else? A skinny young man asked in a low voice. Little Song, you replaced fourth brother's shift today. This is your first time here, so you don't know. That man just now is called Shang Binghe. He's someone we can't afford to offend. It's not just us, but everyone who serves in the Eastern Palace has to give him face. Oh, is he really that powerful? Little Song's eyes widened. He seemed to be very surprised. Could it be that he has some background that we can't afford to offend? That's not it. The only reason he could be so arrogant was because he was the Crown Prince's trusted aide. Ever since the Crown Prince returned from his training 2 years ago, he had inexplicably brought this person back. Furthermore, he trusted this person very much. Many important matters were entrusted to him, including the defense of the Eastern Palace. That's right. With the Crown Prince's protection, how could he not be arrogant? Hey, someone at the side couldn't help but interject. Little Song nodded in understanding and muttered. So that's how it is, then I'll have to be more careful when I see him in the future. Ha. That's not necessarily the case. You're just temporarily replacing fourth brother for the next few days. Once fourth brother recovers, you'll be switched back. Then you won't have to be so worried. The man known as Big Brother Qian patted Little Song on the shoulder. Little Song couldn't help but purse his lips. Big Brother Qian, I don't mean to say this, but you've worked in the Eastern Palace for many years. You're much more experienced than him. Your status should be higher than his. But now, hearing this, Qian Dihao's face stiffened, and the others also fell silent. Little Song seemed to realize his slip of the tongue and hurriedly said, Look at my mouth. I really don't know how to speak. Big Brother Qian, don't mind it. How about I just asked for a jug of good wine for you to taste? Everyone close to Qian Dihao knew that he had no other hobbies besides drinking. As expected, Qian Dihao's expression relaxed a little when he heard this. But he still frowned and sternly said, What are you saying? How can you drink at a time like this? Little Song giggled. Big Brother Qian, don't misunderstand. I'm not asking you to drink now. I'm just asking you to take it home and taste it. You're the best at wine tasting, so why don't you take a look at this wine for me? I'm not very good at drinking, so it's a waste to leave it with me. Without waiting for an explanation, he took out a jug of wine from his universe ring. It seemed that he had accidentally spilled some of the wine because he didn't hold it properly. The clear fragrance of the wine instantly spread. Qian Dihao's eyes lit up. This wine was clearly supreme grade. He immediately wavered, and under Little Song's insistence, he reluctantly accepted the jug of wine. All right, get to work, Qian Dihao called out. Now that His Highness the Crown Prince isn't here, you have to take a closer look, understand? Yes. An hour later, Little Song found the unconscious Qian Dihao in a corner, reeking of alcohol. He grinned, and his youthful face was suddenly filled with a hint of slyness. Hey, immortal drunken wine, plus the special ingredients I added, even a golden immortal can't withstand it. As he spoke, he took a few steps forward and dragged him to a more secluded place. "Since you've drunk my wine, let me borrow your clothes for a while." Not long after, Qin Dihao appeared in front of the inner courtyard of the Eastern Palace and showed his token. "The Crown Prince ordered me to come to the study to retrieve something." Seeing the person who came, the guard in charge of guarding the place was very puzzled. The Eastern Palace was divided into an inner courtyard and an outer courtyard, and the people on both sides guarded it. Especially the people in charge of the outer courtyard. They almost never came to the inner courtyard. What was Qin Dihao doing here? The two of them looked at each other and found that the other was at a loss. "Captain Qian, you said you came to retrieve something on the Crown Prince's orders? But shouldn't His Highness the Crown Prince have already entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain?" Qin Dihao raised his eyelids. This was His Highness the Crown Prince's arrangement before he left. "Why? Are you doubting me or His Highness the Crown Prince?" "We wouldn't dare." Qin Dihao was considered an old man in the Eastern Palace and had some influence. Moreover, His Highness the Crown Prince's usual style of doing things was indeed more casual. "Please, do you need me to send someone to go with you?" Qin Dihao glanced at them indifferently. The Crown Prince's secret order, the fewer people who know, the better, understand? The two of them didn't dare to ask any more questions and could only agree. "Yes." Qin Dihao adjusted his collar and walked inside. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 952. Time passed quickly. Everyone was still waiting quietly at the foot of ancient Phoenix Mountain. In the blink of an eye, it was evening again. Chu Luiwei was slightly relieved that after Wu Ming's Jin Lingzi was crushed, the same thing did not happen to the others. "Everyone has been waiting here for a day. Why don't you all go back and rest and come back tomorrow?" Jun Qiji finally spoke. Although it was not a big problem for cultivators to stay up for a few days and nights, waiting for a total of half a month was a little too long. Moreover, the people waiting here were all the emperors of the various dynasties. None of them were idle people. Even Jun Qiji himself had to find time to go back and deal with some matters. Gongsun Xiao and the others' expressions changed slightly when they heard this. Leaving at this time? Was it not a little too early? What's more, they were still inside. It was really a little worrying. "Thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty. I'll go back first." In the silence, Chu Luiwei was the first to stand up. Everyone was taken aback and looked at her in shock. Was there a mistake? Shangguan, you wanted to leave first? Was she not worried at all about the few people from the Tianling dynasty who had already gone in? One had to know that their overall strength was the weakest among these people. Their situation was not optimistic. Jun Qiji was also a little surprised, but since Chu Luiwei said so, he naturally could not say anything and nodded. "I'll send someone to send you back." Chu Luiwei smiled. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Then, she turned to Elder Chun Ku and the others. "I'll go back and rest for a while. Thank you for your hard work, elders." After saying that, he really lifted his foot and left. The whole process took less than 15 minutes. It could be said that it was clean and efficient. She's still young after all. She can't wait anymore. Gongsun Xiao laughed. "There's nothing to worry about with the elders guarding here," Jun Qiji said and stood up as well. "I still have some things to do, so I won't stay any longer. Everyone, please help yourselves. If there are any problems, the elders and General Qi will help you solve them." This was Northern Darkness's territory, so they had nothing to worry about. They could not see the slightest bit of the situation inside by waiting outside. There was really no need to wait here bitterly. Seeing that Jun Qiji and Chu Luiwei had left, Gongsun Zhao's mind. He looked at Ning's eyes. "Brother Ning, what's your plan? Are you still going to continue waiting?" Ning Yuan's expression was calm. "I have a view, I'll wait." Gongsun Xiao choked. Gongsun Xiao gave up on the idea of leaving and waited with them. He originally wanted to try cultivating while waiting, but unfortunately his mind was restless and he couldn't concentrate. In the end, he simply gave up. So be it. Those people from the Tianling dynasty were probably here to be bystanders, and the Taiyu dynasty was nothing to be worried about. The ones who truly posed a threat to the Xian dynasty were Northern Darkness and East Calm. Northern Darkness had the advantage, so it was normal for them to have a higher chance of winning. They had no intention of fighting Northern Darkness head-on, as long as they could defeat East Calm. Since Ning Yuan was waiting, he naturally could not admit defeat. Seeing that neither of them seemed to have any intention of leaving, Tan Taichun could only continue waiting in silence. On the other side, Chu Luiyue left ancient Phoenix Mountain and quickly returned to her courtyard in Linzhou City. Almost everyone had stayed at ancient Phoenix Mountain. At this moment, the courtyard seemed especially deserted, with only a few servants sent to serve her. The servants were very surprised to see her return, but no one dared to ask anything. Recently, there were rumors that this person seemed to be on good terms with the crown prince. They could not wait to curry favor with her. So how could they dare to offend her? Chu Luiyue only said that she wanted a rest and was not to be disturbed. Then, she easily dismissed the servants. After entering the room, she closed the door as if she really planned to have a good rest. However, she did not return to the bed. Instead, she walked around the screen. A young man had been waiting behind her at some point in time. Upon hearing her footsteps, the man stood up and bowed unhurriedly. "Greetings, Your Highness." Chu Luiyue looked at the man in front of her. He looked to be about 24 or 25 years old. He was tall and thin, with delicate features and relaxed eyebrows. Only his brown eyes occasionally flashed with a cunning dark light. One could tell that he was not as harmless as he appeared on the surface. Chu Luiyue's nose twitched. "Drinking again?" The man's face fell. "Your Highness, we haven't seen each other for 2 years. Why are you talking about this as soon as we meet?" Chu Luiyue walked to the side and sat down, the corners of her lips curling up slightly. "It's been 2 years, Wu Yao. Haven't you kicked your addiction to alcohol?" Wu Yao rubbed his nose and smiled smugly. "Hey, you guessed wrong. I haven't touched a single drop of wine in the past 2 years. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows raised slightly. "Really? Then where did the smell of wine come from?" Wu Yao leaned closer, the smile on his face becoming more and more cunning. "Although I've quit drinking, I haven't abandoned my craft of winemaking. Today, I used a pot of wine to knock open Prince Biming's study." Chu Luiyue's expression changed slightly, and she sat up straight. "Did you find out anything?" Wu Yao narrowed his eyes. "There's a secret passage under Jun Jiuqing's study. More importantly, there seems to be a teleportation array hidden in the secret passage." "Did you find out where the teleportation array leads to?" "Not yet, but I found that the person you asked me to find seemed to have appeared in the study before." "Digression. There's only 4 updates today. It's impossible. But I'll have to trouble everyone to wait again." Cough, cough. Around 8 o'clock. Trojan horse. There's too much going on these 2 days. I'll try to adjust the update later. Trojan horse again. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 953. Chu Luiyue's eyes narrowed. Really, when she asked Wu Yao to do this in the beginning, she didn't have much hope. After all, she was unfamiliar with the northern underworld. Finding her father was like finding a needle in a haystack. Among the 13 Yu, only Wu Yao had been to the northern underworld before and was familiar with this place. Originally, the 13 Yu had received the news and were rushing back to West Hill. However, considering that her father might be trapped in Lin City, Chu Luiyue asked Wu Yao to change direction halfway and come here first. She didn't expect Wu Yao to really find clues. Wu Yao nodded slightly and sized up Chu Luiyue's expression. Seeing her reaction, he couldn't help but be curious. "Your Highness, this person, what's his relationship with you? Why are you so worried?" Her Highness didn't show her emotions. There were only a few people in the world who could make her so worried. He had only received orders to find someone, but he didn't know who it was. Chu Luiyue explained. "That's my father, Chu Ning." Wu Yao was stunned for a moment before he immediately understood. Surnamed Chu, Her Highness's father. Then he must be the biological father of Her Highness's current body. No wonder she was so concerned. It seemed that the relationship between His Highness and Chu Ning was quite close. After figuring out Chu Ning's identity, Wu Yao immediately connected a lot of things together and came to a realization. I see. You said that you found traces of my father in Prince Biming's study. Chu Liyue asked. That's right. Wu Yao's expression became much more serious. You sent an item of Lord Chu Ning's that had his aura on it. After I entered the study, I searched carefully and confirmed that he had indeed been there. Wu Yao liked to brew wine and had a sharp nose. Moreover, he happened to have a sniffer beast, so it was very convenient for him to find people. According to my calculations, it should be half a month ago. Chu Liyue thought to herself. At that time, her father should have just been brought to Lin City. Not long after that, Jun Jiuqing sent her a note telling her about the 1-month appointment. She wondered how her father had been in the past 1.5 months, and where he was now. Is it possible to follow this clue and continue to find father's whereabouts? Wu Yao frowned slightly. I'm afraid this will take some time. After all, too much time had passed, and Lord Chu Ning's aura had almost completely dissipated. This time, it took me a lot of effort to confirm that he had been to the study. Besides, he paused and looked up slightly. Besides, the fact that Lord Chu Ning was able to enter Prince Biming's study proves that the Crown Prince is behind this. You might not know this person very well. He is a vicious and merciless person. Most importantly, the entire Lin City was his territory. As long as he wanted to, he could easily erase any traces. If he intends to hide Lord Chu Ning, then the difficulty will definitely be greater. There's no such thing as an airtight wall in the world. As long as he did it, he would definitely leave behind clues. Chu Liyue muttered to himself for a moment. Now that Jun Jiuqing has entered the ancient Phoenix Mountain, he won't be coming out for a while. Moreover, the attention of others will also be diverted to this matter. As long as you are patient, you will definitely be able to find the other party's negligence. This half a month is the best time. Wu Yao's eyes turned. So His Highness didn't follow into the ancient Phoenix Mountain because of this matter, to be able to make His Highness give up such a great opportunity and do his best to save the person. It seems that this Lord Chu Ning and His Highness do have a deep relationship. Upon realizing this, Wu Yao placed more importance on this matter. When he saw Chu Liyue's tightly knitted brows, he opened his mouth and said, "Don't worry. Your Highness, don't worry. Even if Wu Yao's nose is ruined, he will definitely help you find Lord Chu Ning." Chu Liyue laughed in spite of himself. It was clearly with the help of the wind-sniffing beast. How did it become your credit in the end? Wu Yao chuckled. It is this subordinate's magical beast. Naturally, this subordinate will also be responsible for this. Chu Liyue shook his head with a smile and didn't argue with him. Wu Yao's personality was free and easy, but he was bold and meticulous. He had always been very reliable. Chu Liyue was also very assured of him. Actually, this subordinate thinks that Lord Chu Ning might still be trapped in the palace. After joking, Wu Yao's expression became much more serious. Chu Liyue paused. What do you mean? Prince Biming has always been living in the Eastern Palace. Even though he is already in his 20s, it seems that he has no intention of moving out of the palace. Moreover, the Eastern Palace is very strictly guarded, far stricter than ordinary palaces. This subordinate spent a lot of effort to enter the study. I originally wanted to go to other places, but I didn't succeed. Within the inner courtyard of the Eastern Palace, every room is guarded by someone. Apart from Jun Jiuqing, no one is allowed to enter. Just this point alone was strange enough. Wu Yao had stayed in the northern underworld for a period of time and was also very familiar with his crown prince. Even so, before today, he would never have thought that the Eastern Palace's security would be so tight. Even a ghost would not believe that there was nothing fishy about this. However, perhaps because Jun Jiuqing's style of doing things had always been so willful and reckless, even Jun Shiji did not say anything. Chu Liyue tapped her fingers on the table, as if thinking about something. After a moment, she raised her head. If you want to know the answer, just go and investigate. This princess will enter the Eastern Palace at night tonight. Wu Yao was shocked and immediately said, Your Highness, you can't. That place is heavily guarded, and there are several barriers. If you go now, you will be discovered if you are not careful. Even he, after pondering for a few days, assumed an identity and finally managed to sneak in. If your highness wants to force your way in, it will be very dangerous. It is tantamount to entering the tiger's den. Chu Luiwe smiled. Do you think that, with my current realm, I will be discovered if I go and won't be able to escape? Wu Yao choked, and his voice became much lower. That's not it. It's just that this subordinate is just worried about you. He could see that Her Highness's current strength was at the peak of the 6th rank. This was already very outstanding in the eyes of ordinary people, but it was really impossible to break into the Dark North Imperial Palace alone with this strength. That this subordinate knows that your current strength is not weak and that you have contracted a divine beast, but there are many experts in the Dark North Imperial Palace. Even if you can barely avoid the detection of these people, you can't open the Imperial Palace's barrier formed by the 9th level Xian formation. Chu Luiwe raised her eyebrows slightly. You said the Dark North Imperial Palace's barrier is formed by a 9th level Xian formation? Is it the same as the borders? Wu Yao was stunned. It seemed a little similar. What's wrong? Nothing. Chu Luiwe's lips curled up, and a light flashed in her eyes. The heavens are helping me. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 9:54. Wu Yao drew a map of the palace and marked out the location of the East Palace. Chu Luiwe looked at it for a while and decided on the route. Wu Yao wanted to go with him, but was rejected by Chu Luiwe. He asked him to wait outside the palace. The two of them were too big a target. It was more convenient to go alone. Wu Yao was worried, but seeing that Chu Luiwe had made up his mind, he could only agree. After the discussion, night fell. Chu Luiwe glanced at the sky outside, and it was already completely dark. Both of them had changed into black robes, and their faces were completely covered with hoods. Then, they headed straight for the Dark North Palace. Late at night, Linzhou City was quiet. Vaguely, one could hear the wind rustling. Chu Luiwe and Wu Yao were very discreet. They arrived outside the palace without any obstructions. Of course, they could not enter from the main gate. So, after discussing, they chose the position closest to the East Palace and planned to enter by climbing over the wall. Stay here and provide support at any time, Chu Luiwe said in a low voice. Wu Yao nodded. His eyes were much more serious. Your Highness, be careful. Chu Luiwe turned around and looked at the tall palace wall. The Dark North Palace occupied a huge area. The length of the palace wall was also very shocking. If they sent soldiers to guard every set distance, it would undoubtedly consume a lot of manpower and resources. So, the Dark North Dynasty did not do so. They only sent a few small teams to patrol in turns. On the surface, this seemed to cause the defense to be lax. But in fact, they dared to do so for a reason. Above the palace walls, there was an extremely powerful barrier. Just this alone was enough to stop most of the cultivators. One must know that this was a barrier built by a level 9 Xian formation. If the intruder was too strong, even the barrier could not stop them. Then, the soldiers in charge of patrolling would not be a match. Therefore, the defense of the Dark North Imperial Palace was largely dependent on this layer of barrier. Standing close to it, there was nothing but the palace wall. The barrier was also nowhere to be seen. However, Chu Luiwe knew that it was right in front of him. She held her breath and lifted her finger slightly. A wisp of origin power flew out of her slender white fingertips. This strand of silver origin power rapidly dispersed in several strands and intertwined to form a strange palm-sized diagram. Wu Yao took a closer look and realized that this small pattern seemed somewhat familiar. Chu Luiwe's fingers moved slightly, and the second pattern appeared one after another. Then, she connected the two patterns together. Wu Yao stared at it for a long time. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something, and shock flashed across his eyes. This seems to be, as if to confirm his guess, a ripple suddenly appeared in the void in front of the two of them. Wonk. A transparent barrier slowly appeared in front of the two of them. Above the barrier, an extremely thin silver light flickered. From afar, it looked like a spiderweb. However, upon closer inspection, one would realize that it was actually an incomparably complicated, profound formation. The barrier surged, and silver streams of light intertwined. In front of Chu Luiwei, a circular profound formation gradually formed. Wu Yao saw clearly that this profound formation was almost exactly the same as the first pattern that Chu Luiwei had just displayed. In comparison, Chu Luiwei's formation was much smaller, and its aura was also much weaker. However, the pattern on it was completely the same, so it could still be perfectly compatible. Then, a second profound formation appeared beside it. It was connected to the first one. This scene was exactly the same as the one that Chu Luiwei had displayed. If not for the difference in size, Wu Yao would have thought that there was a mirror in the middle, reflecting the same profound formation. He opened his mouth wide in shock, and for a moment, he didn't know how to react. Wasn't His Highness's physical body destroyed? Didn't he start cultivating again? Didn't his strength and innate talent decrease? What is going on? This is a level 9 profound formation. Wu Yao's gaze was sluggish. He slowly turned his neck stiffly and looked at Chu Luiwei in disbelief. Her expression was calm and indifferent, as if she was just doing a very ordinary and trivial thing. Your Highness, you have replicated these 2 level 9 profound formations? After a while, Wu Yao finally found his voice and asked with difficulty. Chu Luiwei didn't look at him and nodded. Yes. Unfortunately, I only found these 2 identical ones, so I can only start from this position. The barrier here wasn't exactly the same as the one at the border. Fortunately, it seemed that they had used the same level 9 profound masters, so they could barely find 2 familiar profound formations. This was much more convenient. The corner of Wu Yao's mouth twitched. Unfortunately, I only found these 2 identical ones. What does this mean? Wu Yao swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but laugh. That, Your Highness, do you mean that you have other level 9 profound formations to choose from? That's not it. Wu Yao heaved a sigh of relief. I just remembered some at the border. I didn't expect them to come in handy now. It's considered a lucky hit, Chu Luiwei said indifferently. She gathered force in her palm and injected it into the profound formation in front of her again. Buzz. Above the 2 palm-sized silver patterns, an extremely tyrannical fluctuation suddenly surged out. This fluctuation quickly flew out and headed towards the barrier on the opposite side. Bang! A slight collision sound was heard. Between the 2 pairs of profound formations, one big and one small, seemed to form a bridge that was suffused with a faint glow, connecting them together. Chu Luiwei's gaze was fixed. In the next moment, under Wu Yao's shocked gaze, Chu Luiwei's wrist moved. The 2 palm-sized profound formations suddenly separated from the middle. A crack appeared from within, and it was rapidly spreading. Crack! A crisp sound was heard. The 2 profound formations on the barrier in front of the 2 were affected by this force and also separated from the middle. A narrow but perfect entrance was created. Chu Luiwei quickly looked up and looked at other places. When she saw that the other places on the barrier were not affected by this crack, she heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. This barrier was formed by many level 9 profound formations, and a slight movement in one part would affect the whole situation. If she made any movements on it, the slightest bit of carelessness would immediately spread and cause a reaction in the entire barrier. Fortunately, she specially chose the connecting points of the 2 barriers and carefully separated them. In this way, the overall layout of the barrier was not affected, and thus, it could avoid being discovered by others. Wu Yao, who was at the side, was already dumbstruck, and his entire mind was blank. It wasn't that he didn't know that Her Highness had astonishing talent in mystic cultivation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have broken through to become a level 8 mystic cultivator so early. However, not to mention that she had to start all over again and had not recovered to her previous realm at all. Even if she was still at the peak of her strength, it was still inconceivable for her to open a barrier constructed by a level 9 profound formation as a level 8 mystic cultivator. Chu Luiwei did not continue to waste time on this. She took a step forward and entered in a flash. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.